What would you do if the family you once loved turned their back on you and now they're asking for help? Serafina, a 27-year-old woman, had been betrayed in the worst way possible. Her sister Brielle stole her fiancé, Jasper, on the very day Serafina got engaged. 3 years later, after cutting them all out of her life, she receives a desperate call from her mother, asking her to help the couple out of a financial crisis. But Serafina is done. They don't deserve her help. Stay tuned to see how Serafina stands her ground and why she's no longer looking back. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. A few days ago, I got a call from my mother, someone I hadn't spoken to in almost 3 years. She called to ask for my help, saying my sister and her husband had just gone through something horrible. Let me give you some background. The man who is now my sister's husband, Jasper, was supposed to be my husband. My sister, Brielle, who is 23, got together with my fiancé on the very day I got engaged. Jasper and I had been together since college. After nearly 3 years, he finally proposed. He even threw me a surprise engagement party. The night of our engagement, I remember feeling on top of the world. I was excited, relieved, and ready to start this next chapter of my life. But around 2 p.m., I decided to step out into the backyard to get better reception on my phone. And that's when I saw them, my sister and my fiancé together. They were kissing so passionately that it took them a few seconds to even notice me standing there, completely frozen, completely in shock. I couldn't believe it. How could he do this to me? How could she do this to me? After all these years together, after everything we'd shared, this was what I was getting in return. When they finally noticed me, they quickly pulled apart, but the damage was done. I turned on my heel and ran to my car, my heart racing as I drove to the nearest hotel. I was numb. I was in complete disbelief, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. But then I got a text from Brielle. She apologized. She told me she was in love with Jasper. Apparently, this had been going on for a while. I sat there in my hotel room, reading her words, and then I completely broke down. The reality hit me like a ton of bricks. After that, I got a text from Jasper. He said almost the same thing, just as coldly and matter-of-factly. He told me he had only proposed to me because he thought if he committed to me, it would push Brielle out of his mind. But it didn't. It made him want her even more. He told me it wasn't about me, it was about them. They knew they were meant to be together. I was just a placeholder, a stepping stone to bring them together. I stayed in that hotel for days, trying to make sense of it all, trying to tell myself this was just some cruel joke life was playing on me. But after nearly 5 days of torturing myself in disbelief, I finally went back home. I needed to collect my things and get back to work if I didn't want to lose my job. When I got home, I was hit with the realization that my entire family, all of them, had been staying with Jasper under the same roof, waiting for me to come back. It might have been touching if it weren't for the fact that this was why I'd left in the first place. Everyone had been texting me non-stop, trying to get a response. But I hadn't replied to a single message. So when I finally came back, chaos erupted. Everyone crowded around me, hugging me, telling me how glad they were to see me again. Even Brielle had the audacity to approach me, tears in her eyes, giving me a big hug. I stood there in stunned silence. The world felt like it had stopped spinning. How could they just pretend everything was fine? Finally, when the noise died down, I cleared my throat. I had to get this out, had to make them understand. "I'm only here to get my things," I said, my voice steady. "I'm moving out for good." Jasper had been standing quietly up until that point, but as soon as I said I was leaving, he chimed in.
"You don't need to go,"
he said calmly, his voice almost smug. "I've already packed my things. I'm moving in with Brielle." It was as if the words were nothing more than a casual announcement, as if everything that had happened didn't matter. And there, in that moment, my entire family, my parents, my aunt, even my dad's youngest sister who had been living with us, smiled. They actually smiled. I could hardly believe it. There was nothing to smile about, at least not from my perspective. Brielle stood next to Jasper, looking at me with a sad expression, yet still smiling. And in that moment, I realized the truth. They had all chosen sides. They had chosen Jasper and Brielle, not because of love, but because they had already decided I was disposable. They were the family that had never really seen me as family at all. I couldn't take it anymore and asked my family what on earth they were smiling about because, as far as I could see, there was nothing to be happy about. I was upset because Brielle had just broken up my engagement and taken away my boyfriend of almost 3 years. There was nothing funny or sweet about it. My mother spoke up and told me that they couldn't change the past, but they could accept the future. They believed that the future had Brielle and Jasper together, and even though the relationship started with cheating, they felt sorry about it but wanted me to understand that this was for the best. Brielle apologized for taking my boyfriend, saying she couldn't help falling in love with him. She wished she had told me earlier so I didn't have to find out this way, but she said they were deeply in love and wanted to spend their lives together. Then they kissed right in front of me, and my mother even wiped a tear from her eyes. I snapped and told them that this wasn't something to be sentimental about. What they were doing was disgusting. To my surprise, my family got annoyed with me and said I was being bratty. Instead of being happy for my sister, they thought I was making it all about myself and didn't approve of my behavior. I was shocked by their attitude and told them all to get out of my house. I couldn't understand how they were defending Brielle and Jasper while making me look like the bad guy, acting like I was overreacting. My father stepped in and told me not to act like a child because things like this happen, and I should just accept it. He said I should be happy that my sister found her soulmate instead of being jealous. It felt like they were all acting crazy, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. So I said, "Screw it," went to my room, packed some of my things, and left again without talking to them or listening to what they had to say, even as they called my name and told me not to go. I didn't have anything left to say to them because it was clear that they cared more about Brielle and her happiness than about me or what was right and wrong. They were so focused on justifying what Brielle had done that they completely forgot that I had real feelings too. After that day, my family tried to contact me several times, but I never responded because I didn't think I owed them anything. A couple of weeks later, I even received an invitation to Brielle and Jasper's wedding, which I obviously declined. All the friends that Jasper and I had in common also declined the wedding invitation to support me, and even a few relatives who knew the truth stopped interacting with my family after they learned how I had been treated. It's been 3 years, and I've cut them out of my life completely. They occasionally try to get back in touch by wishing me well on my birthday or New Year, but I always ignore them. I never blocked any of them, though. I did remove them from my friends list. Since I have a public account, they could still see what I was up to, which is what I wanted. I wanted them to see that I was living a great life and let them feel jealous. It was a bit petty, but it was the least I could do after how they treated me. Until recently, I had no idea what Brielle and Jasper had been up to. But about 5 days ago, my mother called me from an unfamiliar number. When I picked up and realized it was her, my first instinct was to hang up. But she begged me, pleaded with me to give her a chance to talk. She sounded so frantic, so upset, that I reluctantly agreed to listen for a few minutes. I couldn't completely ignore her, even though everything inside me screamed to do so. She told me Brielle and Jasper had started a business a couple of years ago, but it had failed miserably. Investors were backing out because there was no profit. They had borrowed more money, but that hadn't worked either, and now they were drowning in debt. Loan sharks were after them. They were being hounded by everyone from employees to investors to the people they owed money to. I lived a comfortable life, and I could afford to help them out. My mother knew that, so she came to me as a last resort, begging me to lend them almost $95,000 to clear their debts. I took a moment to process her words. Then I asked, "Why isn't Brielle the one calling me if she needs help? Why is she making you ask me instead?" My mother hesitated before explaining that Brielle and Jasper didn't even know she was reaching out to me for help. They'd specifically told her not to. I guess they hadn't forgotten what happened 3 years ago. Brielle didn't want me involved, and she wasn't ready to take anything from me, but my mother had no other options. A few months had passed already, and Brielle and Jasper were struggling to put food on the table. My parents and Jasper's family were doing what they could, but it wasn't enough. They had their own futures to think about, especially since most of them, including Jasper's parents, were retired. That's why my mother, with no one else to turn to, had called me. I could afford to help them, but every fiber of my being screamed no. Brielle was right not to contact me. They lost the right to ask anything of me the day they betrayed me. I told my mother, I can't help them, and even if I could, I won't. She sounded devastated. You're being cruel. You need to think about your family. I clenched my jaw and reminded her, Brielle and Jasper didn't think about me when they had their affair, and none of you thought about me when you supported them. So why should I think about them now? I had worked hard to get where I am. I wasn't going to throw away $95,000 for two people who had done nothing but hurt me. My mother's voice cracked, and I could hear her crying. I never expected you to be so selfish. Brielle and Jasper will be in serious trouble if you don't help them. I felt nothing. That's unfortunate, but I can't help them. I hung up before I could hear another word. Since that call, my phone has been bombarded with text after text from my mother, almost every hour. She begged me to reconsider, to think about Brielle, to stop playing petty games. She kept telling me that this wasn't the time for revenge, that Brielle was in serious trouble, and warned that I'd regret this decision in the future. She sounded desperate. But I didn't know how to respond. I didn't want to be the villain here, but I also didn't want to be manipulated again. Am I wrong for not helping my sister after everything she did to me 3 years ago? Update: I finally blocked my family. I hadn't done it sooner because first, I wanted them to see what I was up to and feel jealous. And second, because I thought cutting them off completely might be something I'd regret if something bad happened to them. But now, I couldn't care less. I should have removed them from my life 3 years ago. Keeping them around this long was the real mistake. Refusing to help them now? It's not petty. It's just the logical decision. They've wasted so much money already, and I'm sure that even if I handed over $95,000 today, they wouldn't be able to pay it back. I don't have unlimited resources. Just because I'm doing well financially doesn't mean I can throw away that much money without expecting it to be repaid. If it were a close friend asking for help, I would still expect repayment, but these aren't close friends. They're not even my family anymore. I can't expect them to pay me back, so there's absolutely no reason for me to help, and that's as simple as it gets. I talked to a few of my friends about this to get their opinions, and they agreed that I did the right thing by refusing to give them the money, not out of revenge, but because it's completely impractical and foolish to expect me to help the very people who betrayed me in the past. Anyway, my mother is now blocked, and she can't contact me to guilt-trip me anymore. I have nothing to worry about. At least, that's what I thought. Update 2. Hi everyone, something really big happened today. I was at work when I got a call from my neighbor. She told me there was a couple outside my house screaming for me to come out and talk to them. My neighbor said they seemed pretty crazy and had been yelling at my door for about an hour, refusing to leave. I asked her to describe them, but deep down, I already knew who it was. When she described them, it just confirmed my suspicion. It was Brielle and Jasper. My neighbor insisted that I come back home to deal with them because she didn't think they were up to any good. Given that it was Brielle and Jasper, I knew she was right, so I thanked her and immediately started driving back home because I couldn't risk them getting into my house. Luckily, I got there in about 20 minutes and caught them in the act of trying to break into my house by picking a lock on my door. I pulled up in front of my house and demanded to know what they thought they were doing. I tried to call the police right away, but Jasper moved like lightning and knocked the phone out of my hand. Brielle walked over and said they were just there to talk and they didn't want anything from me, at least not right now. I told them to make it quick and made it clear that they shouldn't expect me to invite them inside. Whatever they had to say would have to be discussed outside, in the yard. They seemed okay with that, which was a relief because I didn't think it would be a good idea to let them inside. They already seemed pretty hostile, and I didn't know what to expect. Brielle started talking, telling me that our mother had informed her about the phone call and how I had ignored all the texts that followed, even blocking them. She said my behavior was unfair and that since it had been 3 years, I should really be over it by now. I was accused of being dramatic, of just trying to get attention from the family. Brielle said she felt insulted because I refused to help them, and that's why she was here to talk to me. She mentioned that she had managed to scrape together enough money for now by selling their house and all their jewelry, but there was a strong chance she might need more in the future. She wanted to know that she could rely on me when that time came. I didn't hesitate. "No," I said flatly. "You can't count on me, and you shouldn't ever count on me again, under any circumstances." My voice shook with anger. "I hate you and your husband with a passion, Brielle. You don't deserve my help. Not now. Not ever." I made sure she could hear the raw intensity in my words. I was so angry I warned her that it was taking all my self-control not to physically lash out at her, so it would be best if they just left. I could barely keep my hands from shaking. But then, out of nowhere, Jasper demanded that they wouldn't leave until I signed a document promising to help them with money in the future. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I knew that such a document wouldn't even be legally valid if I was coerced into signing it, and the audacity of them trying to manipulate me like that was beyond comprehension. I told them to get out of my house immediately, but Brielle wasn't done. She actually pushed me and said that I had to help them because I owed it to them because we were family. She said I couldn't just run away from my responsibilities like this. I was stunned. She had the nerve to put her hands on me. I wanted so badly to slap her, but I held back, knowing that violence would only make the situation worse. Instead, I grabbed my phone, which had fallen to the ground when Jasper knocked it out of my hand earlier. I ran for the door, dashed into my car, and sped off without even checking the rearview mirror. Luckily, I hadn't turned off the engine when I left the car, so it was still running. I got a head start on them, and thankfully, they didn't chase me on foot. But they stayed at my house, which was unfortunate. Once I was far enough away, I decided to call the police. I explained everything that had happened, and then I drove back to my house, arriving just in time before the police got there. Within 25 minutes, they showed up. I gave them all the details, and they arrested Brielle and Jasper. I knew the charges weren't serious, and they would probably get off easily, but at least they were taken away. I didn't have to deal with them anymore. A few hours passed, and I hadn't heard from anyone in my family, which was strange. I had expected at least one of them to contact me from a different number, but there was nothing. I couldn't decide if they were finally done with me or if they were just waiting for things to calm down before reaching out again. Update 3. It's been a week since I last posted, and I honestly thought my family would finally leave me alone after I called the police on Brielle and Jasper. But I was wrong. They didn't stop. This time, it was my parents who showed up at my house, asking if they could talk to me. They seemed different, a little less arrogant than Brielle and Jasper had been. So, I let them in. As soon as my mother stepped inside, she started crying. She apologized for ever taking Brielle's side over mine. My father explained that after they found out Brielle and Jasper were arrested, after seeing how they had treated me, they couldn't look at them the same way anymore. They had decided to cut them off. My mother kept crying, while my father continued to apologize for siding with Brielle all this time, admitting that it was me who was the victim. I listened, but I didn't feel relief. It was too little, too late. I had already built a life for myself without them, and I wasn't going to let them back in just because they finally realized they were wrong. I told them, "I appreciate the apology, but I've grown used to living my life on my own terms. I don't want to go back to putting family before myself. You were too late to fix things. I can't promise to work on our relationship because honestly, I don't see the point. It's broken." They protested, of course. They said that we could fix things if we really tried, but that was the problem. I didn't want to anymore. I just wanted peace. Peace away from the hurt and complications of the past. I told them I respected their efforts, but I was done trying. They seemed disappointed, but they left, asking if I could at least unblock them so they could stay in touch. I unblocked them. It felt strange, but for now, that's where things stand. I'm not sure what the future holds, but for the first time in my life, I'm focusing on my own peace. No more pretending, no more family obligations. Just me. What do you do when your own family betrays you so deeply, yet expects you to forgive and forget when they finally realize the truth? Serafina was betrayed in the most heart-wrenching way possible. Not only was her fiancé stolen by her own sister, but her entire family, including her parents, chose to side with them, leaving her to pick up the pieces of her broken heart. For years, she gave them everything: her support, her love, even her financial resources, believing that family was supposed to be there for one another. But when Brielle and Jasper's affair came to light, it wasn't just a matter of betrayal. It was the final confirmation that Serafina was nothing more than an afterthought to them. When her family reached out for help after Brielle and Jasper's business failed, they thought Serafina would forget everything and bail them out. But she didn't. She saw through their manipulation, and for the first time, she realized that family doesn't always mean unconditional love or support. Serafina had worked hard to build her own life, and despite what her family had done to her, she refused to throw away her hard-earned money to help those who had caused her the most pain. It wasn't about being petty. It was about protecting herself from further manipulation. So the question is, what would you have done? Would you have helped your family despite the pain they caused you? Or, like Serafina, would you have put your peace first? Let's talk about it in the comments, and if you found this story powerful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.
I stare at the pile of my belongings haphazardly strewn in the hallway, my heart sinking with each passing second. The door to my loft, my sanctuary, remains firmly shut. The locks changed without my knowledge or consent. Confusion and disbelief wage a war inside me as I try to comprehend the scene before me. Surprise! Marcy's voice cuts through the haze, her tone dripping with false cheer. She emerges from behind the door, a smug grin plastered on her face. I'm pregnant, and we need a bigger place. Your loft is perfect. Her words hit me like a sucker punch, knocking the wind out of my lungs. What? You can't just take over my home, Marcy. This is my place, my life. Oh, come on, Tessa. You're never here anyway, always jetting off to some work thing. It's time to grow up and think about family. She rests her hand on her still flat stomach, her eyes glinting with a challenge. Anger bubbles up inside me, mixing with the sting of betrayal. Family? You mean the one that changes my locks and throws my stuff out without even a conversation? Marcy rolls her eyes, dismissing my outrage with a flippant wave of her hand. Don't be so dramatic. You can crash with Mom and Dad for a while. They'll be thrilled to have you back home. And what about my job, my responsibilities? I can't just upend my life because you decided to get knocked up. The words come out harsher than I intend, but the hurt fuels my indignation. Responsibilities? Marcy scoffs, her lips curling into a sneer. You mean like the way you've been playing the martyr, acting like you're the only one holding this family together? Well, guess what? It's my turn now. I need this more than you do. Her callousness cuts deep, the weight of her entitlement pressing down on my chest. You can't just take what's mine, Marcy. This is my home, my life. You have no right. No right. She laughs, the sound grating against my ears. I have every right. I'm the one starting a family, while you're just playing house in your fancy loft. It's time for you to step aside and let me have my chance. Tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. I won't give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. This isn't over, Marcy. You can't just steamroll over my life like this. Watch me. Her voice is cold, her eyes glinting with a triumphant gleam. Face it, Tessa, you've always been the responsible one, the one who cleans up everyone's messes. Well, now it's time for you to clean up your own. With those cutting words, she turns on her heel and slams the door in my face, leaving me standing amidst the wreckage of my life. The click of the lock echoes in the hallway, a brutal finality to her actions. I sink to the floor, my back pressed against the wall, as the weight of her betrayal crashes over me. How could she do this? How could my own sister, my flesh and blood, turn against me like this? As I sit there, surrounded by the scattered remnants of my life, a fierce determination takes root inside me. I won't let her win. I won't let her destroy everything I've worked so hard to build. I'll find a way to fight back, to reclaim what's rightfully mine. Marcy may think she's won, but she has no idea the storm that's coming her way. Growing up, I always felt like I was living in Marcy's shadow. She was the charming one, the free spirit who could light up a room with her smile. I, on the other hand, was the responsible one, the diligent daughter who worked hard to make something of myself. Our parents, Janet and Harold, always seemed to favor Marcy. They indulged her every whim, bailing her out of trouble time and time again. I remember the countless nights I stayed up late, studying for exams or working on projects, while Marcy was out partying with her friends. When I landed my first job as a marketing consultant, I thought things would change. I hoped that my parents would finally see me as an equal, someone to be proud of. But even then, Marcy managed to steal the spotlight. "Tessa, honey, we're so proud of you," Mom said during one of our weekly phone calls. "But have you heard about Marcy's latest adventure? She's going to backpack through Europe for a few months. Isn't that exciting?" I gritted my teeth, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "That's great, Mom, but what about my promotion at work? I thought you'd be happy for me." "Of course we are, dear. It's just that Marcy's trip sounds so thrilling. You should try to be more spontaneous like her." Those words cut deep, reinforcing the notion that no matter what I achieved, Marcy would always be the favored child. As the years went by, I found myself financially supporting my parents, believing that the money was going towards their retirement. I sent them monthly checks, sacrificing my own savings to ensure they were comfortable. Little did I know that a significant portion of that money was being funneled straight into Marcy's pockets. She would call up our parents, spinning tales of financial woe and begging for help. And they, ever the doting parents, would readily dip into the funds I provided to bail her out. It wasn't until I started noticing discrepancies in my own finances that I began to suspect something was amiss. I pored over bank statements and credit card bills, my heart sinking with each transaction I couldn't account for. When I confronted my parents about it, they were evasive at first. "Tessa, you know we would never misuse your money," Dad said, his voice strained. "We've just had some unexpected expenses, that's all." But I wouldn't let it go. I pushed and prodded until the truth finally came out. They had been using my money to fund Marcy's lavish lifestyle, from designer clothes to exotic vacations. The betrayal cut me to the core. I had trusted them, believed that they had my best interests at heart, but all along, they had been enabling Marcy's reckless behavior at my expense. "How could you do this to me?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. "I worked so hard to support you, to make sure you were taken care of, and this is how you repay me?" Mom had the decency to look ashamed, but Dad remained defensive. "Marcy needed our help, Tessa. She's family, and we couldn't turn our backs on her." "But what about me?" I shot back, the tears threatening to spill over. "Am I not family too? Or am I just a convenient ATM for you to use whenever Marcy gets herself into trouble?" The silence that followed was deafening. In that moment, I realized that I had always been an afterthought in their eyes. Marcy was the golden child, the one they would move heaven and earth for. I was just the reliable one, the one they took for granted. As I walked out of their house that day, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I made a vow to myself. I would no longer be a pawn in their games. I would cut the financial ties that bound me to their manipulation and claim my independence, no matter the cost. With my belongings hastily packed into boxes and suitcases, I find myself standing on my best friend Emily's doorstep, feeling like a refugee from my own life. She opens the door, her eyes widening as she takes in my disheveled appearance. "Tessa, what happened?" she asks, ushering me inside. I collapse onto her couch, the weight of the past few hours crashing down on me. Through choked sobs, I pour out the story of Marcy's betrayal and my parents' complicity in her schemes. Emily listens intently, her brow furrowed with concern. "I can't believe they would do this to you," she says, shaking her head. "After everything you've done for them." "I feel like such a fool," I confess, wiping away the tears that refused to stop falling. "I trusted them, Em. I thought I was doing the right thing by supporting them." She sits down beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You can't blame yourself, Tess. They took advantage of your kindness." As I lean into her comforting embrace, my mind races with the implications of my family's actions. I know I can't continue down this path, enabling their behavior at the cost of my own well-being. Over the next few days, as I settle into Emily's spare room, I begin to formulate a plan. I dive into my financial records, piecing together the extent of my parents' deceit. The more I uncover, the more my resolve hardens. I discover that they've been siphoning off money from the account I set up for their retirement, funneling it into Marcy's frivolous pursuits. Designer clothes, expensive trips, even a down payment on a luxury car, all funded by the money I had worked so hard to provide. The betrayal cuts deeper with each revelation, fueling the anger that simmers beneath my skin. I know I can't let this continue. I have to take a stand, to cut the financial ties that have bound me to their manipulation for far too long. I meet with a financial advisor, seeking guidance on how to disentangle myself from the mess my family has created. He helps me set up new accounts, separate from the ones my parents have been leeching off of. "You're making the right decision," he assures me, his voice filled with understanding. "It's not easy, but sometimes we have to put ourselves first." As I sign the paperwork, a sense of empowerment washes over me. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm taking control, asserting my independence from the toxic dynamics that have held me back for so long. But even as I take these steps towards freedom, I know that the hardest part is yet to come. I have to confront my parents, to make them understand the consequences of their actions. I steel myself for the inevitable showdown, rehearsing the words I'll say over and over in my mind. I won't let them manipulate me anymore, won't let them twist the truth to suit their own selfish needs. As I walk into their house, my heart pounds in my chest, but I refuse to let my resolve waver. They look up at me, their faces etched with a mixture of surprise and apprehension. "Tessa, what's going on?" Mom asks, her voice trembling slightly. I take a deep breath, steadying myself for the confrontation that's about to unfold. "We need to talk," I say, my voice firm and unwavering. "About the money, about Marcy, about everything." Their eyes widen, guilt flashing across their features. They know that the truth is about to come out, that the carefully constructed web of lies they've spun is about to unravel. And as I stand there, ready to face the storm, I know that this is just the beginning. The road ahead may be rocky, but I'm determined to forge my own path, to break free from the chains of my family's manipulation and claim the life I deserve. The family gathering is in full swing when I arrive, the sound of laughter and chatter filling the air. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that's about to unfold. With a stack of credit card statements clutched in my hand, I make my way through the crowd, my eyes scanning the room for Marcy. I find her holding court in the kitchen, surrounded by a group of admiring relatives. She's regaling them with tales of her latest shopping spree, bragging about the designer clothes and expensive jewelry she's acquired. "Marcy, we need to talk," I say, my voice cutting through the frivolity like a knife. She turns to face me, her eyes narrowing as she takes in the serious expression on my face. "Can't it wait, Tessa? I'm in the middle of a story." "No, it can't." I hold up the credit card statements, my hand trembling slightly. "We need to talk about this." Marcy's eyes widen as she realizes what I'm holding, a flicker of panic crossing her features. She quickly composes herself, plastering a fake smile on her face. "I don't know what you're talking about, sis. Those must be your statements." I shake my head, anger bubbling up inside me. "Don't lie to me, Marcy. I know you've been using my credit to finance your little shopping adventures." The room falls silent, the tension palpable. Our relatives exchange uncomfortable glances, sensing the storm that's about to break. "I have no idea what you're talking about," Marcy insists, her voice dripping with false innocence. "You must be mistaken." I can't contain my fury any longer. "Mistaken? You've been racking up thousands of dollars in charges on my credit cards, Marcy. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, lavish vacations, all on my dime." Marcy's facade cracks, her true colors shining through. "Oh, come on, Tessa. It's not like you can't afford it. You're the big shot with the fancy job, remember?" Her words are like a slap in the face, the entitlement and lack of remorse behind them stunning me into silence for a moment. But I quickly recover, my resolve hardening. "That's not the point, Marcy. You had no right to use my credit without my permission. It's fraud, plain and simple." She scoffs, rolling her eyes. "Fraud? Don't be so dramatic, sis. It's just a little shopping. No big deal." I can feel the eyes of our relatives on us, the weight of their judgment heavy in the air, but I refuse to back down, to let Marcy's manipulations go unchallenged any longer. "It is a big deal, Marcy. You've been taking advantage of me for years, using me as your personal piggy bank. Well, guess what? I'm done. I'm done enabling your reckless behavior, done cleaning up your messes." Marcy's eyes flash with anger, her true nature finally exposed for all to see. "You're just jealous, Tessa. Jealous that I know how to live life to the fullest while you're stuck in your boring little world. I shake my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You call this living life to the fullest? Stealing from your own sister, manipulating our parents, leaving a trail of destruction in your wake? That's not living, Marcy. That's being a selfish, entitled brat. The room erupts into chaos, our relatives taking sides and voices rising in a cacophony of accusations and defenses. But I tune them out, my focus solely on Marcy. I'm cutting you off, Marcy. No more access to my credit, no more bailouts from our parents. It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions. With those words, I turn on my heel and walk out of the room, ignoring the shouts and pleas behind me. I know that this is just the beginning, that Marcy won't go down without a fight, but I'm ready for whatever she throws my way. I'm done being her doormat, done sacrificing my own happiness for her selfish whims. It's time for me to take back control of my life, no matter the cost. In the days following the confrontation at the family gathering, I throw myself into the task of gathering evidence against Marcy. I pore over bank statements, credit card bills, and email trails, piecing together the extent of her deceit. The more I uncover, the more my anger grows. Marcy hasn't just been using my credit for her shopping sprees. She's been actively trying to turn our family against me, spinning tales of my supposed selfishness and lack of family loyalty. I find emails she sent to our parents, painting me as the villain in our story. Tessa's always been jealous of me, she writes. She can't stand to see me happy, so she's trying to ruin my life. The lies and manipulation are so blatant, so calculated, that I can hardly believe what I'm reading. How could my own sister be so cruel, so vindictive? But I refuse to let her win. I gather all the evidence I can find, compiling it into a neat little package that I know will be her undoing. As I work, I can't help but think back on all the times Marcy has taken advantage of me over the years. The borrowed money that was never repaid, the favors that were never returned, the snide comments and backhanded compliments that chipped away at my self-esteem. I realize now that I've been too passive, too willing to let her walk all over me in the name of family harmony. But no more. It's time for me to stand up for myself, to demand the respect and fairness that I deserve. I meet with a lawyer, seeking guidance on how to proceed. He looks over the evidence I've gathered, nodding approvingly. "This is solid, Tessa," he says. "We can definitely build a case against your sister for fraud and identity theft." The words fraud and identity theft hit me like a punch to the gut. I never imagined that things would go this far, that my own sister would be facing legal consequences for her actions. But I know that I can't back down now. I have to see this through, no matter how painful it may be. I start to distance myself from my family, knowing that Marcy will stop at nothing to turn them against me. I change my phone number, block their emails, and refuse to engage in any further communication. It's a lonely existence, cut off from the people I once held dear. But I know that it's necessary, that I can't let myself be dragged back into the toxic cycle of enabling and codependency that has defined our relationship for so long. As I prepare for the inevitable legal battle ahead, I can't help but feel a sense of sadness mixed with the anger and betrayal. I never wanted things to come to this, never wanted to have to take such drastic measures against my own flesh and blood. But I know that I'm doing the right thing, not just for myself, but for Marcy as well. She needs to face the consequences of her actions, to learn that she can't go through life taking advantage of others without repercussions. I steel myself for the fight ahead, knowing that it won't be easy. Marcy will undoubtedly try to paint me as the villain, to twist the truth to suit her own selfish narrative. But I have the truth on my side, and I won't let her lies and manipulations win out in the end. I'll present my evidence, lay bare the extent of her deceit, and let the chips fall where they may. As I sit in my temporary refuge, surrounded by the boxes and suitcases that contain the remnants of my former life, I know that I'm on the cusp of something big, a chance to break free from the chains of my past, to forge a new path for myself free from the toxic influence of my family. It won't be easy, but I'm ready for whatever comes my way. I'm done being a victim, done letting others dictate the course of my life. From now on, I'm the one in control, and heaven help anyone who tries to stand in my way. The day of the mediation session arrives, and I find myself sitting across from Marcy and our parents in a sterile conference room. The tension in the air is palpable, the weight of the impending confrontation heavy on my shoulders. Marcy sits there, a smug smile on her face, as if she's already won. Our parents look uncomfortable, shifting in their seats and avoiding eye contact with me. The mediator, a stern-looking woman in her 50s, clears her throat and begins the proceedings. We're here today to address the allegations of fraud and identity theft brought forth by Tessa Johnson against her sister, Marcy Johnson. Marcy scoffs, rolling her eyes. This is ridiculous. Tessa's just being dramatic, as usual. I feel my anger rising, but I take a deep breath and focus on the task at hand. I nod to my lawyer, who begins presenting the evidence we've gathered. He lays out the credit card statements, the email trails, the bank records that show the extent of Marcy's deceit. With each piece of evidence, I see the color drain from Marcy's face, the realization that she's been caught red-handed slowly sinking in. Our parents look stunned, their eyes widening as the truth of Marcy's actions is revealed. They turn to her, disbelief and disappointment etched on their faces. Marcy, how could you? Mom asks, her voice trembling. How could you do this to your own sister? Marcy's facade cracks, her true nature spilling out in a torrent of anger and resentment. Oh, spare me the lecture, Mom. You've always favored Tessa, always put her needs above mine. I was just taking what I deserved. Dad shakes his head, his voice heavy with sadness. We never favored Tessa, Marcy. We love you both equally. But what you've done, it's unforgivable. Marcy laughs, a bitter, hollow sound. Unforgivable? That's rich, coming from you two. You're the ones who enabled her, who let her play the martyr while I got scraps. I can't hold back any longer. I lean forward, my voice shaking with anger. Scraps, Marcy? I've been supporting you for years, bailing you out of every mess you've gotten yourself into. And this is how you repay me, by stealing from me, by trying to turn our family against me. Marcy's eyes narrow, her voice dripping with venom. You've always been the golden child, Tessa, the perfect daughter, the one who could do no wrong. Well, guess what? I'm done living in your shadow. The mediator clears her throat, trying to regain control of the situation. Miss Johnson, the evidence against you is quite clear. You're facing serious legal consequences for your actions. Marcy's face pales, the reality of her situation finally hitting her. She turns to our parents, desperation in her eyes. Mom, Dad, you have to help me. You can't let her do this to me. But our parents shake their heads, their faces etched with disappointment and resignation. We can't help you anymore, Marcy, Dad says. You've gone too far this time. I feel a twist of satisfaction at Marcy's despair, but it's tempered by the sadness of seeing our family torn apart. I never wanted things to come to this, but I know that I had no choice. The mediator turns to me, her voice sympathetic. Miss Johnson, I understand that this has been a difficult and painful process for you, but you've done the right thing by coming forward and seeking justice. I nod, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. It's not the outcome I hoped for, but it's a start. A chance to break free from the toxic cycle of enabling and codependency that has defined our family for so long. As we leave the conference room, I know that the road ahead won't be easy. Marcy will undoubtedly face legal consequences for her actions, and our family will have to grapple with the fallout of her betrayal. But I also know that I'm ready for whatever comes next. I've found my strength, my voice, and I won't let anyone silence me again. This is my story, my life, and I'm the one who gets to write the ending. In the weeks following the mediation session, I watch as Marcy's world begins to crumble around her. The legal consequences of her actions start to catch up with her, and she's forced to face the reality of the mess she's created. I hear through the grapevine that she's been fired from her job, her employer citing the pending fraud charges as grounds for termination. Her fancy apartment, the one she so gleefully took from me, is now in jeopardy as she struggles to make ends meet. Part of me feels a twisted sense of satisfaction at seeing her suffer, at watching the scales of justice finally tip in my favor. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, feels a pang of sadness at how far we've fallen. I try to push those feelings aside, focusing instead on the task of rebuilding my own life. I throw myself into my work, taking on new projects and responsibilities in an effort to distract myself from the pain of my family's betrayal. But even as I try to move forward, Marcy's presence still lingers like a shadow over my life. She starts calling me at all hours of the day and night, her voice slurred and desperate as she begs for my help. "Tessa, please," she sobs into the phone. "I need money. I'm going to lose everything." I feel a flicker of anger at her audacity, at the fact that she still thinks she can manipulate me into cleaning up her messes. "You should have thought of that before you stole from me, Marcy. I'm not your personal ATM anymore." She lashes out then, her voice filled with venom. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Seeing me suffer, watching me lose everything. You've always been jealous of me, always wanted to see me fail." I shake my head, even though she can't see me. "I never wanted this, Marcy. I never wanted our family to be torn apart like this. But you made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." She hangs up on me then, and I'm left feeling drained and empty. I know that I'm doing the right thing by cutting her off, by refusing to enable her any longer. But it doesn't make it any easier to watch my sister self-destruct. As the weeks turn into months, I start to hear rumors about Marcy's increasingly erratic behavior. She's been spotted drunk in public, getting into fights with strangers, and causing scenes at local bars. I try to distance myself from the gossip, focusing instead on my own healing. I start seeing a therapist, working through the years of trauma and codependency that have defined my relationship with my family. It's a slow and painful process, but gradually I start to feel a sense of hope and possibility that I haven't felt in years. I start to imagine a life beyond the confines of my family's dysfunction, a future where I'm free to be my own person, unencumbered by the weight of their expectations and demands. And then, one day, I receive a letter from Marcy. It's short and to the point, a simple apology for all the pain she's caused me over the years. "I know I can't undo what I've done," she writes, "but I'm getting help now, and I'm trying to be a better person. I hope that someday you can find it in your heart to forgive me." I read the letter over and over again, feeling a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wants to crumple it up and throw it away, to dismiss it as just another manipulation tactic. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the bond we once shared, feels a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there's a chance for us to heal, to find a way forward that doesn't involve the toxic cycles of the past. I know that it won't be easy, that there's no guarantee that Marcy will follow through on her promises. But for the first time in a long time, I allow myself to hope, to believe that change is possible. And as I sit there, holding that letter in my hands, I know that whatever happens next, I'll face it with the strength and resilience that I've fought so hard to earn. 2 years later, I find myself in a new city, thousands of miles away from the memories of my past. I've built a new life for myself here, one that's free from the toxic influence of my family and the constant drama that seemed to follow us wherever we went. My career has taken off in ways I never could have imagined, and I find myself thriving in my new role as a marketing executive. I've made new friends, formed new relationships, and discovered a sense of purpose and fulfillment that I never knew was possible. But even as I embrace this new chapter of my life, I can't help but think about the family I left behind. I wonder how they're doing, if they've managed to find their own paths to healing and redemption. I think about my parents, the ones who enabled Marcy's behavior for so long, and I feel a pang of sadness mixed with frustration. I know that they're not entirely to blame for what happened, that they were victims of Marcy's manipulation just as much as I was. But I also know that they played a role in perpetuating the cycle of dysfunction that nearly destroyed our family. They refused to see the truth about Marcy's behavior, choosing instead to turn a blind eye and make excuses for her actions. I've tried to maintain a relationship with them, sending the occasional email or text message to let them know that I'm doing okay. But there's a distance between us now, a gulf that feels impossible to bridge. I know that they're struggling to adjust to life without Marcy's constant demands and manipulations. I've heard through the grapevine that they've had to downsize their lifestyle, selling off assets and cutting back on expenses in order to stay afloat. Part of me feels a twisted sense of satisfaction at the thought of them finally facing the consequences of their actions. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the love and support they once provided, feels a deep sense of sadness at how far we've fallen. I try to push those feelings aside, focusing instead on the task of building a better future for myself. I've learned the hard way that I can't change the past, that I can't force my family to be something they're not. But what I can do is make sure that I never repeat their mistakes. I can break the cycle of codependency and dysfunction that nearly destroyed us all, and create a new legacy for myself that's based on honesty, integrity, and self-respect. And so I pour myself into my work, into my friendships, into the things that bring me joy and fulfillment. I volunteer at local charities, donate to causes that I believe in, and try to make a positive difference in the world around me. I know that I can't save everyone, that I can't fix all the broken parts of my family's past, but I can be a force for good in my own life and in the lives of those around me. And as for Marcy, the sister who nearly destroyed everything I held dear, I hear through the grapevine that she's started to turn her life around, that she's entered a rehab program, and is working to make amends for her past actions. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive her completely, if I'll ever be able to trust her again after everything that's happened. But I do know that I'm proud of her for taking that first step, for finally acknowledging the pain she's caused and working to be a better person. Maybe someday we'll find our way back to each other. Maybe we'll be able to rebuild the bond that was once so strong between us. But for now, I'm content to focus on my own journey, on the path that I've chosen for myself. And as I look out at the city skyline, at the endless possibilities that stretch out before me, I know that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. I'm free, I'm happy, and I'm finally living life on my own terms. You're never going to be as perfect as my mother. Jasper's words cut through the air like a knife. I stand there stunned as my husband of 5 years glares at me with a mixture of anger and contempt. I'm not your mother, and I never will be, I shoot back, my voice trembling with rage. I'm done trying to live up to her impossible standards. Jasper scoffs, rolling his eyes. You couldn't even if you tried. She's everything you're not, elegant, refined, and knows how to keep a home. I feel my blood boil. Is that what you want? A housewife who caters to your every whim? Well, I've got news for you, Jasper. I'm my own person, with my own dreams and aspirations. I won't be your little puppet. He steps closer, his face inches from mine. You knew what you were getting into when you married me. I thought you'd be different, but you're just like all the rest, selfish and ungrateful. Tears sting my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. I won't give him the satisfaction of seeing me cry. If wanting to be treated with respect and equality makes me selfish, then so be it. I'm not going to apologize for standing up for myself. Jasper's jaw clenches, and for a moment I think he might hit me. But instead he turns on his heel and storms out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I sink to the floor, my legs no longer able to support me. How did we get here? When did the man I fell in love with turn into this cruel, controlling stranger? I think back to our early days when Jasper was charming and attentive. He swept me off my feet with grand gestures and promises of a beautiful future together. But as soon as we said I do, everything changed. At first it was subtle. A snide comment here, a disapproving look there. But over time his behavior became more overt. He started dictating what I could wear, who I could see, and how I should spend my time. He even convinced me to quit my job, claiming that he wanted me to focus on being a homemaker. I thought I could handle it, that I could be the perfect wife he wanted. But no matter how hard I tried, it was never enough. And now as I sit here on the cold, hard floor, I realize that I've lost myself in the process. A sudden wave of determination washes over me. I won't let Jasper break me. I won't let him control my life any longer. I push myself up, wiping away the tears that have managed to escape. It's time to take back my power, to rediscover the strong, independent woman I once was. I don't know how I'll do it, but I know I can't continue living like this. As I stand there, staring at the closed door, I make a silent vow to myself. I will find a way out of this toxic marriage, no matter what it takes. I will rebuild my life on my own terms, and I will never again let anyone dim my light. With a deep breath, I take my first step towards freedom, towards the future I know I deserve. It won't be easy, but I'm ready to fight for it, for myself and for the life I know I'm meant to live. As I sit in my car, parked outside Naomi's house, I can't help but reflect on the past 5 years of my marriage. How did I let things get so bad? I used to be a strong, independent woman, but somehow Jasper managed to chip away at my self-esteem, piece by piece. I think back to the early warning signs. The way he would criticize my cooking, my appearance, even the way I laughed. At first, I brushed it off as him being particular, but now I see it for what it was, a systematic attempt to control every aspect of my life. And then there were the lies. The late nights at the office, the mysterious phone calls, the sudden trips out of town. I always had a nagging suspicion that something wasn't right, but I never had the courage to confront him. Until now. I take a deep breath and exit the car, making my way up the path to Naomi's front door. She opens it before I even have a chance to knock, enveloping me in a tight hug. "I'm so glad you're here," she whispers, leading me inside. "I've been worried sick about you." We settle onto her couch, and I pour out my heart, telling her everything that's happened over the past few weeks. The arguments, the accusations, the growing distance between Jasper and me. "I think he's cheating on me," I confess, my voice barely above a whisper. "With his new secretary, Scarlett." Naomi's eyes widen. "That little tramp? I knew there was something off about her the moment I met her." I nod, feeling a mix of anger and despair wash over me. "I don't know what to do. Naomi, I feel like I'm losing my mind." She takes my hand, her expression fierce. "You need to find out the truth, Arya. You deserve to know what's really going on." I bite my lip, hesitating. "But how? Jasper's so secretive. He barely lets me near his phone or computer." Naomi leans in, a glint of determination in her eyes. "Leave that to me. I have a friend who's a private investigator. He owes me a favor." I feel a flicker of hope ignite in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, I can finally get the answers I need. Over the next few days, Naomi's friend tails Jasper, gathering evidence of his infidelity. When he presents me with the proof, photos of Jasper and Scarlett in compromising positions, recordings of their intimate conversations, I feel like I've been punched in the gut. But beneath the pain, there's a simmering rage. How dare he betray me like this? How dare he make a mockery of our marriage vows? I confront Jasper that night, throwing the evidence in his face. He has the audacity to deny it at first, but when he realizes he's been caught, his demeanor changes. "So what if I'm sleeping with her?" He sneers, his eyes cold. "It's not like you're fulfilling my needs. You're a pathetic excuse for a wife." I see red. Before I know what I'm doing, I'm screaming at him, hurling every insult I can think of. He matches me, word for word, his voice rising until we're both shouting at the top of our lungs. And then, suddenly, he's on me, his hands around my throat, squeezing the air from my lungs. I claw at his fingers, gasping for breath, but he's too strong. Black spots dance in my vision as I feel myself slipping away. The next thing I know, I'm waking up in a hospital bed, my head throbbing and my arm in a cast. The doctors tell me I'm lucky to be alive, that I suffered a concussion and a broken arm from falling down the stairs. But I know the truth. Jasper pushed me. And if it hadn't been for a neighbor hearing the commotion and calling the police, I might not have survived. As I lie there, bruised and broken, I make a decision. I won't let Jasper win. I won't let him destroy me. I'll do whatever it takes to bring him to justice and rebuild my life, even if it means facing my darkest fears and confronting the ugliest parts of myself. The hospital room is cold and sterile, the beeping of machines my only company. I stare at the stark white ceiling, trying to process the events of the past few hours. How could Jasper do this to me? How could he hurt me like this? As if on cue, the door opens and my father Henry walks in. His face is etched with worry, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "Arya, my baby girl," he whispers, rushing to my bedside. "I came as soon as I heard. Are you okay?" I try to smile, but it comes out as more of a grimace. "I've been better, Dad, but I'll survive." He takes my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "I know you will, sweetheart. You're the strongest person I know." Tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I don't feel very strong right now. I feel like a fool for not seeing Jasper for who he really is. My father's expression hardens. That man is a monster. I always had a bad feeling about him, but I never imagined he'd go this far. I nod, swallowing the lump in my throat. There's more, Dad. I found out he's been embezzling money from his father's company, and he's been using it to fund his affair with his secretary. Henry's eyes widen. Embezzlement? Affair? Jesus, Arya, you need to get away from him. Press charges. Make him pay for what he's done. I hesitate, fear gripping my heart. But what if he comes after me? What if he tries to hurt me again? My father's jaw clenches. He won't get the chance. I'll make sure of it. I may be retired, but I still have connections on the force. We'll get a restraining order, and I'll personally see to it that he's arrested for assault. Relief washes over me, followed by a sudden wave of nausea. I lurch forward, my hand flying to my mouth. Arya, what's wrong? My father asks, alarmed. I shake my head, trying to steady my breathing. I don't know. I just feel sick all of a sudden. A nurse enters the room, a clipboard in hand. Miss Hawthorne, I have your test results back. I look up, my heart pounding. Test results? What test results? The nurse gives me a sympathetic smile. The pregnancy test, dear. Congratulations. You're going to be a mother. The room spins, and I feel like I might pass out. Pregnant? How can this be happening? I can't bring a child into this mess. I can't let Jasper have any more power over me. My father squeezes my hand, his voice gentle. Arya, listen to me. This baby is a blessing, a chance for a fresh start. You can do this. You can be an amazing mother. I close my eyes, trying to imagine a future where I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for Jasper to strike. A future where my child is safe and loved and protected. You're right, Dad, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. I can do this. I have to do this. For my baby and for myself. I open my eyes, a newfound determination coursing through my veins. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm going to make sure Jasper pays for everything he's done, to me and to his family's company. My father nods, a proud smile on his face. That's my girl. I'll be with you every step of the way. We'll get through this together. As I lie there, my hand resting on my still flat stomach, I feel a flicker of hope. Maybe this baby is a sign. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's still a chance for light, for love, for a future worth fighting for. And fight I will. With every ounce of strength I have left in me, for my child, and for the woman I know I can become. Jasper may have broken my bones, but he'll never break my spirit. Not now, not ever. The divorce papers feel heavy in my hands as I sit across from Jasper and his mother, Evelyn. Her eyes are cold, her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. Arya, dear, she says, her voice dripping with false concern. Are you sure this is what you want? A divorce is so final. Think of the family name. Think of Jasper's reputation. I feel a surge of anger. Jasper's reputation? What about my well-being? What about the fact that he pushed me down the stairs and nearly killed me and our unborn child? Evelyn waves a dismissive hand. Oh, don't be so dramatic. It was an accident. Jasper would never intentionally hurt you. I laugh, the sound bitter and hollow. An accident? Is that what he told you? Well, let me tell you the truth, Evelyn. Your son is a monster. He's been cheating on me, embezzling money, and abusing me for years. And I'm done. I'm done being his punching bag and his doormat. Jasper leans forward, his eyes narrowed. You're making a mistake, Arya. You'll never survive without me. You're nothing without me. I meet his gaze, unflinching. That's where you're wrong, Jasper. I'm everything without you, and I'm going to make sure you pay for what you've done, to me and to your father's company. Evelyn gasps, her hand flying to her chest. What are you talking about? Jasper would never steal from his own father. I slide a folder across the table. I have proof. Bank statements, emails, recordings. He's been embezzling for years, using the money to fund his lavish lifestyle and his affair with his secretary. Jasper's face pales, and for a moment I see a flicker of fear in his eyes. But then it's gone, replaced by cold, hard rage. You bitch! He snarls, lunging across the table. I'll kill you for this. But before he can reach me, my father steps forward, placing himself between us. Touch her again, and I'll make sure you rot in prison for the rest of your miserable life. Evelyn is sobbing now, her carefully crafted facade crumbling. Jasper, tell me it's not true. Tell me this is all a misunderstanding. But Jasper says nothing, his jaw clenched tight. I can see the wheels turning in his head, trying to find a way out of this mess. I stand up, my head held high. It's over, Jasper. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm taking full custody of our child. You'll pay child support, and you'll stay away from us. Forever. I turned to Evelyn, my voice softening. I know you love your son, Evelyn, but he needs help. He needs to face the consequences of his actions, and if you truly care about him, you'll let him do that. With that, I walk out of the room, my father by my side. I feel a weight lift off my shoulders, a sense of freedom I haven't felt in years. But I know this is just the beginning. Jasper won't go down without a fight. He'll try to weasel his way out of this to manipulate the system in his favor. But I'm ready. I have the truth on my side, and I have the support of the people who love me. My father, Naomi, now my unborn child. As I step out into the sunlight, I take a deep breath, feeling the warmth on my face. For the first time in a long time, I feel hope. Hope for a better future, a future free from fear and pain. I place a hand on my stomach, a small smile playing at the corners of my lips. It's just you and me now, little one, but we're going to be okay. We're going to make it through this, and we're going to come out stronger on the other side. And with that, I take my first steps towards my new life, my head held high and my heart full of determination. Jasper may have broken my bones, but he'll never break my spirit. Not now, not ever. The weeks following my confrontation with Jasper and Evelyn are a blur of legal meetings and doctor's appointments. My father, true to his word, has been by my side every step of the way, helping me navigate the complex world of divorce proceedings and criminal investigations. Today we sit in his study, poring over the evidence he's managed to gather on Jasper's shady dealings. Bank statements, phone records, surveillance photos, it's all there, painting a damning picture of a man consumed by greed and power. I've seen a lot of scumbags in my time on the force, my father says, shaking his head. But Jasper takes the cake. The things he's done, the people he's hurt, it's unforgivable. I nod, my eyes fixed on a particularly incriminating email exchange between Jasper and a known associate of the mob. I just don't understand how he could do this, how he could betray his own family, his own wife, for money and power. My father sighs, leaning back in his chair. Some people are just wired differently, Arya. They don't have a conscience or a sense of right and wrong. They'll do whatever it takes to get what they want, no matter who gets hurt in the process. I feel a chill run down my spine, remembering the cold, calculating look in Jasper's eyes as he lunged at me across the table. Do you think he'll go to prison? For the embezzlement and for what he did to me? My father nods, his jaw set in determination. I'll make damn sure of it. I've already turned over all the evidence to the authorities. They're building a case against him as we speak. Relief washes over me, followed by a sudden wave of fear. But what if he tries to come after me? What if he tries to take our child away? My father leans forward, taking my hand in his. Arya, listen to me. I won't let that happen. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you and my grandchild safe. Even if it means putting myself between you and Jasper. Tears prick at the corners of my eyes, and I squeeze my father's hand. I don't know what I'd do without you, Dad. You've been my rock through all of this. He smiles, his eyes soft with love. That's what fathers are for, sweetheart, to protect their children, no matter what. We sit in silence for a moment, the weight of the past few months hanging heavy in the air. Finally, my father clears his throat, his expression turning serious. There's something else you should know, Arya. Something about Jasper's past. I feel a knot form in the pit of my stomach. What is it? My father takes a deep breath, as if steeling himself for what he's about to say. I did some digging, and it turns out this isn't the first time Jasper's been accused of domestic violence. His ex-girlfriend, a woman named Tara, filed a restraining order against him years ago. She claimed he beat her, threatened to kill her if she ever left him. I feel like I might be sick. Oh my God, why didn't I know about this? Why didn't anyone warn me? My father shakes his head, his expression grim. He had it sealed, buried deep, probably paid off a judge or two to make it go away. But it's all coming out now. The truth always has a way of coming to light. I close my eyes, trying to process this new information. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed the signs? But even as I berate myself, I feel a new sense of determination taking hold. I won't let Jasper get away with this. I won't let him hurt anyone else the way he hurt me. I open my eyes, meeting my father's gaze with a steely resolve. We have to stop him, Dad. We have to make sure he never lays a hand on another woman again. My father nods, a proud smile playing at the corners of his lips. That's my girl. We'll take him down, Arya, together, and we'll make sure he pays for every last one of his sins. The sound of shattering glass jolts me awake, my heart pounding in my chest. For a moment, I'm disoriented, my mind still foggy with sleep. But then I hear it again, the unmistakable sound of footsteps creeping through my apartment. Fear grips me, cold and paralyzing. I know it's Jasper. I can feel it in my bones. He's come for me, just like I always feared he would. I reach for my phone with shaking hands, dialing 911. But before I can even get a word out, my bedroom door bursts open and there he is. His eyes wild, his face contorted with rage. You stupid bitch, he snarls, stalking towards me. You thought you could ruin me? You thought you could take everything away from me? I scramble out of bed, my legs tangling in the sheets. Jasper, please, don't do this. Think about our child. He laughs, the sound harsh and mocking. Our child? You mean the bastard you're carrying? That thing is no child of mine. Tears stream down my face as I back away from him, my eyes darting around the room for an escape. But he's blocking the only exit, his body coiled with menace. I'm going to make you pay, Arya. I'm going to make you suffer for what you've done to me. He lunges at me, his hands outstretched. I dodge to the side, my instincts taking over. I've spent years being his victim, but not anymore. Not tonight. I grab the lamp from my bedside table, swinging it with all my might. It connects with Jasper's head with a sickening crack, sending him stumbling backwards. I don't waste a second. I run, my bare feet pounding against the hardwood floors. I can hear Jasper behind me, his footsteps heavy and unsteady. I make it to the front door, my fingers fumbling with the lock. But before I can wrench it open, Jasper is on me, his hands wrapping around my throat. You're not going anywhere, he growls, his breath hot against my face. You're mine, Arya. You'll always be mine. Black spots dance in my vision as he squeezes tighter, cutting off my air supply. I claw at his hands, desperate for release, but he's too strong, too fueled by rage and hatred. Just as I feel myself slipping away, the sound of sirens pierces the air. Jasper's grip loosens, his head whipping towards the window. Police! Open up! He curses under his breath, releasing me. I collapse to the floor, gasping for air. The next few moments are a blur of shouts and splintering wood as the police break down the door. They swarm into the apartment, their guns drawn. Jasper Hawthorne, you're under arrest for attempted murder and breaking and entering. I watch as they handcuff him, his eyes still blazing with fury. But as they lead him away, I feel a sense of relief wash over me. It's over. He can't hurt me anymore. My father is there, his arms wrapping around me in a tight embrace. It's okay, Arya. You're safe now. He's never going to touch you again. I nod, my body shaking with sobs. I thought he was going to kill me, Dad. I thought I was going to die. He strokes my hair, his voice soft and soothing. But you didn't. You fought back. You survived. And now he's going to pay for everything he's done. As the adrenaline fades, I feel a new emotion taking hold, a fierce, burning anger. Jasper may be in custody, but this isn't over, not by a long shot. I'll see him brought to justice. I'll make sure he spends the rest of his miserable life behind bars, and I'll do it all for our child, the innocent life he so callously dismissed. I may be battered and bruised, but I'm not broken. I'm a survivor, and I'll never let anyone make me feel powerless again. The courtroom is packed, the air thick with tension. I sit at the prosecutor's table, my father and Naomi by my side. Jasper is across the aisle, his face a mask of cold indifference. The trial has been a grueling ordeal, each day bringing new revelations of Jasper's cruelty and deceit. But today, as the final witness takes the stand, I feel a sense of anticipation building in my chest. Scarlett, Jasper's former mistress, looks nervous as she's sworn in. Her eyes dart around the room, avoiding Jasper's icy stare. Miss Johnson, the prosecutor begins, can you please tell the court about your relationship with the defendant? Scarlett takes a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. We were lovers. He told me he was going to leave his wife for me, that we were going to start a new life together. Jasper's lawyer jumps to his feet. Objection. Relevance? The judge waves him off. Overruled. Continue, Miss Johnson. Scarlett nods, her voice growing stronger. He promised me the world. But it was all a lie. He never had any intention of leaving Arya. He was just using me, like he used everyone else in his life. I feel a pang of sympathy for Scarlett despite everything. She was just another pawn in Jasper's twisted game. The prosecutor presses on, his voice firm. And what happened when you confronted him about his lies? Scarlett's eyes fill with tears. He hit me. He told me I was nothing, that I meant nothing to him. He said if I ever told anyone about us, he'd kill me. The courtroom erupts in gasps and murmurs. I glance at Jasper, expecting to see anger or defiance, but instead I see something else. Fear. As Scarlett steps down from the stand, the prosecutor calls his final witness. The state calls Evelyn Hawthorne to the stand. I watch in disbelief as Jasper's mother takes the oath, her face a mask of sorrow and regret. Mrs. Hawthorne, the prosecutor says gently, I know this must be difficult for you, but can you please tell the court about your son's behavior towards his wife? Evelyn takes a shuddering breath, her eyes fixed on her hands. I knew he was hurting her. I saw the bruises, heard the fights, but I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe my son could be capable of such things. She looks up, her gaze locking with mine. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I'm so sorry, Arya. I should have protected you. I should have stopped him. Tears stream down my face as Evelyn's words wash over me. For so long I thought I was alone in this fight. But now I see that I have allies in the most unexpected places. The prosecutor turns to the jury, his voice ringing with conviction. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard the evidence. You have heard the testimony of the brave women who survived Jasper Hawthorne's abuse. And now it's time for justice to be served. The jury deliberates for less than an hour before returning with their verdict, guilty on all counts. I feel a rush of emotion as the judge reads out the sentence, 25 years to life, with no chance of parole. It's over. It's finally over. As the bailiffs lead Jasper away, he turns to me, his eyes burning with hatred. This isn't over, Arya. I'll find a way to make you pay for this. But I just smile, my head held high. No, Jasper, you're the one who's going to pay. For the rest of your miserable life. I walk out of the courtroom, my father and Naomi by my side. The sun is shining, the air crisp and clean. For the first time in years, I feel truly free. I know the road ahead won't be easy. I have a child to raise, a life to rebuild. But I also know that I'm not alone. I have the love and support of my family, my friends, and my own unbreakable spirit. And that's enough. That's more than enough. 5 years. That's how long it's been since I walked out of that courtroom, my head held high and my heart finally free. 5 years of raising my daughter, of building a life on my own terms, 5 years of healing, of learning to trust again, of rediscovering the strength that Jasper tried so hard to steal from me. But now, as I watch Lily play in the park, her laughter ringing out like a bell, I feel a familiar sense of unease creeping up my spine. Because today is the day that Jasper is being released from prison, his sentence cut short by some bureaucratic loophole that I still don't fully understand. I've been dreading this moment for months, ever since I got the call from the prison warden. I knew it was coming, but somehow I still feel unprepared. How do you face the man who nearly destroyed you, who left scars on your body and your soul that will never fully heal? I'm jolted out of my thoughts by a voice calling my name. I turn, my heart dropping into my stomach. It's Jasper. His face leaner and harder than I remember, his eyes still filled with that same cold hatred. Arya, he says, his voice dripping with false charm. It's been a long time. I stand up, my body tense and ready for a fight. What do you want, Jasper? He smiles, the expression not quite reaching his eyes. I want to see my daughter, of course. I have rights, you know. I shake my head, my voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. You lost those rights the moment you laid a hand on me, the moment you tried to kill me and our unborn child. Jasper takes a step forward, his fists clenched at his sides. Don't test me, Arya. I've spent the last 5 years dreaming of this moment, dreaming of the day I'd finally get to see you and Lily again. I stand my ground, my chin lifted in defiance. You'll never see her, Jasper, not as long as I'm alive. He laughs, the sound harsh and grating. You think you can stop me? You think you have any power here? I feel a sudden surge of strength, the same strength that carried me through the darkest days of my marriage, through the long and painful journey of rebuilding my life. I have all the power, Jasper, Because I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm not the same woman you married, the same woman you tried to break. I'm stronger now, stronger than you'll ever be. Jasper's face twists with rage, his hands balling into fists. But before he can take a step, I hear a voice calling out from behind me. "Mommy!" I turn, my heart swelling with love and pride as I see Lily running towards me, her face flushed with joy. I scoop her up into my arms, holding her close. "Hey, baby girl," I murmur, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I love you so much." I turn back to Jasper, my voice steady and calm. "This is my life now, Jasper. This is my family, and you have no place in it. Not now, not ever." For a moment, I see a flicker of something in his eyes. Regret, perhaps, or even a hint of shame. But it's gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by that same cold, hard anger. "This isn't over, Arya," he says, his voice low and menacing. "You can't keep me from my own flesh and blood." I shake my head, a small smile playing at the corners of my lips. "Watch me." And with that, I turn and walk away, Lily still nestled in my arms. I can feel Jasper's eyes boring into my back, but I don't look back. I don't give him the satisfaction. Because I know deep in my bones that I've already won. I've won the battle for my own soul, for my own happiness, and no matter what Jasper does, no matter how hard he tries, he'll never be able to take that away from me. I am a survivor, I am a warrior, and I will never, ever let anyone make me feel powerless again. I can't believe you would do this to me, Damien. At my father's funeral, of all places. My voice trembles with rage and disbelief as I confront my husband, his shirt hastily buttoned and lipstick smeared on his collar. Damien's eyes widen in surprise before narrowing with contempt. "Don't be so dramatic, Raven. It's not like you were ever enough for me anyway." His words cut deep, reopening wounds I thought had long since scarred over. I think back to when we first met, how his charm and promises of success had blinded me to the red flags. I was just a naive, struggling artist then, desperate for love and validation. "I gave up everything for you," I choke out, my vision blurring with unshed tears. My art, my dreams, my self-respect, and for what? A loveless marriage and a lifetime of regret? Damien scoffs, his handsome face twisting into a sneer. "You were always so pathetic, Raven, clinging to me like I was your last hope. Well, guess what? I never needed you. I only married you for your father's money and connections." The truth of his words hits me like a punch to the gut. I think of all the years I wasted trying to win his love and approval while he was busy building a life with someone else, someone younger, prettier, more talented. "Who is she, Damien? The woman you were just fucking in the coat room?" My voice is low and dangerous, barely recognizable to my own ears. He smirks, unashamed. "Her name is Sasha. She's everything you're not, Raven. Young, passionate, with a real future in the art world, and she's pregnant with my child." I feel like I might be sick. The betrayal is too much, too raw. I think of my father, cold in his casket just feet away. He never approved of Damien, never thought he was good enough for me, and now with his last breath he was proven right. "I want a divorce," I say firmly, my hands shaking as I reach for my phone. "I'm done being your doormat, Damien. I'm done letting you destroy me." He laughs, cruel and mocking. "You'll never be free of me, Raven. I own you body and soul. Without me, you're nothing." But as I press record on my phone, capturing his vicious words for all the world to hear, I feel a flicker of something long forgotten stir inside me. Something like hope, like defiance. "You're wrong, Damien," I say calmly, my tears drying on my cheeks. "I may have lost myself for a while, but I'm taking my life back, starting now." And with that, I turn and walk away, my head held high despite the curious stares and whispered gossip of the funeral guests. I don't know what the future holds, but one thing is certain. Raven Callaghan is done being shattered. It's time to pick up the pieces and create a new masterpiece from the ruins of my broken dreams. The sleek lines of Damien's penthouse mock me as I step inside, a cruel reminder of the gilded cage I now call home. The minimalist decor, once so chic and sophisticated, feels cold and sterile, like a museum display of my shattered dreams. "Raven, darling, you're back," Damien calls from the living room, his voice dripping with false affection. "How was the funeral?" I clench my fists, the memory of his betrayal still fresh and stinging. "Like you care," I mutter, kicking off my heels and padding into the room. He's sprawled on the leather sofa, a glass of scotch dangling from his fingertips. Of course I care, sweetheart. Alistair was like a father to me. I snort, the irony almost too much to bear. Really? Because last I checked, most people don't skip their father-in-law's funeral to screw their mistress in the coat room. Damien's eyes flash with annoyance, his mask of concern slipping. I thought we were past that little misunderstanding, Raven. I explained everything. Misunderstanding? I echo, my voice rising with incredulity. You called me pathetic, said you only married me for my father's money, and let's not forget the part where you got your barely legal side piece pregnant. He sets down his drink, his jaw clenching. Watch your tone, Raven. You're treading on thin ice. I laugh, the sound harsh and brittle. Or what, Damien? You'll leave me? Ruin my life? Newsflash, asshole, you already have. Just then, the front door slams, announcing the arrival of my least favorite person. Lilith, Damien's teenage daughter from his first marriage, saunters in, her heavily lined eyes narrowing as she spots me. Oh, look, the gold digger's back, she sneers, tossing her designer bag on the counter. Shouldn't you be out spending my inheritance on tacky art supplies? Yes, I bite back a retort, knowing it's useless to engage with her. Lilith has hated me from the moment I moved in, seeing me as a threat to her daddy's fortune and attention. Lilith, please, Damien chides, but there's no real rebuke in his tone. Raven is part of this family now. You need to show her some respect. Respect? Lilith scoffs, her heavily glossed lips curling in disdain. For what? Her amazing ability to spread her legs and trap men into marriage? The words hit me like a slap, the air rushing from my lungs. I turn to Damien, expecting him to defend me, to put his daughter in her place. But he just shrugs, reaching for his drink again. She's not wrong, Raven. You didn't exactly bring much to the table when we met. No money, no connections, just a pretty face and a decent pair of tits. I feel like I might be sick, the room spinning around me. Is this really what he thinks of me? Is this all I am to him, to everyone in this godforsaken family? I'm an artist, I whisper, my voice cracking. I have talent, I have dreams. Lilith rolls her eyes, her laughter cruel and mocking. Dreams? Wake up, Raven. You're nothing but a washed-up wannabe who got lucky, and now that Daddy's gone, your luck's about to run out. She flounces out of the room, her parting words hanging in the air like a noose. I turn to Damien, desperate for some shred of comfort, of reassurance, but he just shakes his head, his expression a mix of pity and contempt. She's right, you know. Without Alistair's money, we're screwed. The gallery's in the red, and your little art projects aren't exactly paying the bills. I feel like I'm suffocating, the walls of this beautiful, terrible apartment closing in on me. Is this really my life now? A loveless marriage, a resentful stepdaughter, a husband who sees me as nothing more than a meal ticket? I think back to the girl I used to be, the one who believed in love and art and the power of her own voice. She seems so far away now, a distant memory of a life I can never reclaim. But as I stand there, something inside me hardens, a small, fierce spark of defiance flickering to life. I may be trapped, I may be broken, but I'm not dead yet. And one way or another, I'm going to make them pay for what they've done to me. 5 years. That's how long it's been since I stood in front of the mirror, a shadow of the woman I used to be. My once vibrant eyes are dull, my skin pale and drawn. The paintbrushes that were once an extension of my soul now lie forgotten, gathering dust in the corner of my studio. I hear the front door slam, followed by the click of high heels on the marble floor. Lilith, now 21 and every bit as vicious as her father, enters the room, her lip curled in a sneer. Still moping around, I see, she taunts, her gaze sweeping over my paint-splattered sweatpants and messy bun. Don't you have anything better to do than wallow in self-pity? I don't bother to respond, knowing it will only fuel her cruelty. Lilith has made it her mission to torment me at every turn, blaming me for the family's financial struggles and her own miserable existence. You know, if you weren't such a useless leech, maybe Daddy wouldn't have to work so hard to keep us afloat, she continues, examining her perfectly manicured nails. But I guess that's what happens when you marry a talentless gold digger. I feel a flicker of anger, but it's quickly extinguished by the weight of my own despair. She's right, after all. What have I contributed to this family, to this life? Nothing but broken dreams and empty promises. The sound of the door opening again jolts me from my thoughts. Damien enters, his suit impeccable and his expression unreadable. He barely spares me a glance as he pours himself a drink, the amber liquid sloshing against the sides of the glass. "Lilith, darling, I need to speak with Raven alone," he says, his tone calm but firm. "Why don't you go shopping with your friends? Use the black card." Lilith's eyes light up, her earlier venom forgotten in the face of her father's generosity. She snatches the credit card from his outstretched hand and flounces out of the room, leaving me alone with the man I once thought I loved. "Your father called," Damien says, taking a sip of his scotch. "He wants to see you." I blink, surprised by the mention of Alistair. We haven't spoken in months, not since our last explosive argument about my life choices. "What does he want?" I ask, my voice hoarse from disuse. Damien shrugs, his gaze still fixed on the view outside the window. "He didn't say, but he sounded different, like he was in pain." A flicker of hope ignites in my chest, a tiny ember in the ashes of my dreams. Could this be it? The chance I've been waiting for? The opportunity to escape this gilded hell and start anew? "I'll go see him," I say, my resolve strengthening with each word. Maybe he's finally ready to listen, to understand. Damien scoffs, draining the last of his drink. "Don't get your hopes up, Raven. Alistair Blackwood is a stubborn old bastard. He'll never change." But as I walk out of the penthouse, my head held high for the first time in years, I feel a sense of purpose, of determination. I may have lost myself along the way, but I'm not going to let them win. I'll see my father, hear what he has to say. And then, one way or another, I'll find a way to break free from this nightmare and reclaim the life I once had, even if it means burning everything to the ground and starting from scratch. The church is silent, save for the muffled sobs of the mourners and the soft rustling of tissues. I sit in the front pew, my eyes fixed on the polished wooden casket that holds my father's lifeless body. Alistair Blackwood, the man who was supposed to be my rock, my protector, is gone. I feel a hand on my shoulder and turn to see Damien, his face a mask of feigned sympathy. "I'm so sorry for your loss, darling," he murmurs, his voice like silk hiding a dagger. "Your father was a great man." I nod, too numb to speak. I think back to our last conversation, just days before his sudden death. He had hinted at a change in his will, a final act of love and redemption. But now I'll never know what he wanted to say, never have the chance to make things right between us. The service ends, and I stand on shaky legs, accepting condolences from strangers and distant relatives. Damien is nowhere to be seen, and a sinking feeling settles in my gut. I excuse myself and slip out of the church, my heels clicking on the stone steps. I hear voices coming from the coat room, and I freeze, my heart pounding in my chest. It's Damien, and he's not alone. I inch closer, my breath caught in my throat. "God, Sasha, you feel so good," he groans, and I hear the unmistakable sound of flesh on flesh. "I can't wait to leave that frigid bitch and start a new life with you." "What about the money?" a woman's voice asks, breathless and eager. "You said she was going to inherit everything." Damien laughs, the sound cruel and mocking. "Don't worry about that, baby. I have a plan. Once the will is read, I'll contest it, say that Raven manipulated the old man into cutting me out. She's got no proof, no witnesses. It'll be her word against mine." I feel like I might be sick, my stomach churning with rage and disgust. How could I have been so blind, so stupid? I trusted him, loved him, and all along he was plotting to use me and toss me aside. "And what about the kid?" Sasha asks, her voice tinged with worry. "You sure it's yours?" "Of course it's mine," Damien scoffs. "You think I'd let some other man touch what's mine?" "No, this is our ticket to the good life, Sasha, a new start, with Raven's money in my brains. We'll be unstoppable. I can't listen anymore, can't bear to hear another word of their sickening plan. I fumble for my phone, my hands shaking as I hit the record button. I need proof, need to expose Damien for the lying, cheating bastard he is. I step into the coat room, my head held high and my eyes blazing with fury. "Well, well, well," I say, my voice dripping with venom. "What do we have here?" Damien and Sasha spring apart, their faces flushed and their clothing disheveled. "Raven, I can explain," Damien stammers, his eyes wide with panic. "Oh, I think you've explained quite enough," I snarl, holding up my phone. "I heard everything, Damien, every disgusting, despicable word." Sasha blanches, her hand flying to her stomach. "You recorded us?" she whispers, her voice trembling. I nod, a cold smile spreading across my face. Every single second. And now, I'm going to make sure the whole world knows what a pathetic, conniving worm you really are, Damien Callaghan. I turn on my heel and storm out of the room, my heart pounding with a newfound sense of purpose. I may have lost my father, my marriage, and my self-respect, but I'll be damned if I let them take anything else from me. It's time to fight back, to take what's mine and burn the rest to the ground. And I won't stop until Damien and his little whore are nothing but ashes at my feet. The funeral guests stare at me in stunned silence as I march back into the church, my phone clutched in my hand like a smoking gun. Damien follows close behind, his face a mask of panic and fury. "Raven, please, let's talk about this in private," he hisses, reaching for my arm. I yank away from his grasp, my eyes blazing with a fire I thought had long since been extinguished. "Oh, we're gonna talk, all right," I say, my voice ringing out clear and strong. "But not in private, not anymore." I turn to face the crowd, my heart pounding in my chest. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make. My husband, Damien Callaghan, is a liar, a cheat, and a thief." Gasps and murmurs ripple through the room, and I see Lilith's face turn pale with shock. Good. Let her see her precious daddy for the snake he really is. "I have proof," I continue, holding up my phone. "Recorded evidence of Damien's infidelity and his plans to contest my father's will and steal my inheritance." Damien lunges for the phone, but I'm too quick for him. I hit play and his voice fills the church, every damning word echoing off the high ceilings. "You bitch," he snarls when the recording ends, his face twisted with rage. "You think you can destroy me? I made you, Raven. Without me, you're nothing." I laugh, the sound harsh and bitter. "That's where you're wrong, Damien. I'm not nothing. I'm Raven fucking Blackwood, and I'm done being your doormat." I reach into my purse and pull out a thick envelope, tossing it at his feet. "I've already spoken to my lawyer. My father changed his will before he died, leaving everything to me. And as for you, you're out on your ass, with nothing but the clothes on your back and the child support payments for your bastard kid." Damien's face drains of color, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "You can't do this," he whispers, his voice trembling. "I'll fight it. I'll take you for everything you're worth." I smile, cold and cruel. "You can try, but I have the law on my side and a team of the best lawyers money can buy. You're finished, Damien. And as for you, Lilith?" I turn to face my stepdaughter, my eyes narrowing. "Don't even think about coming to me for help. You're just as bad as your father, and I'm done enabling your toxic behavior. You want money, get a job. You want love, earn it. But don't expect anything from me, ever again." Lilith's face crumples, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please, Raven, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it, any of it. I was just angry, jealous. Don't cut me off, I need you." I shake my head, my heart hardening to her crocodile tears. "You need a reality check, Lilith, and I'm done being your punching bag. I have my own life to live, my own dreams to chase, and I won't let you or anyone else hold me back anymore." I turn to the stunned crowd, my head held high. "Thank you all for coming to pay your respects to my father. But if you'll excuse me, I have a divorce to finalize and a new chapter to begin." I walk out of the church, my steps light and my heart soaring. For the first time in years, I feel alive, powerful, in control of my own destiny. Damien and Lilith can rot in the hell they've created for themselves. I have a legacy to claim and a life to rebuild, one brushstroke at a time, and nothing and no one is going to stand in my way. The gallery is buzzing with activity, the white walls lined with paintings that seem to vibrate with energy and emotion. I stand in the center of the room, a glass of champagne in my hand and a smile on my face. This is my moment, my triumph, and I'm going to savor every second of it. I see Damien across the room, his face haggard and his suit hanging off his frame. He looks like a man who's lost everything, and in a way, he has. I made sure of that. I saunter over to him, my heels clicking on the polished concrete floor. "Damien, darling, so glad you could make it," I purr, my voice dripping with false sweetness. "I know how busy you must be, what with the job hunt and all." He glares at me, his eyes bloodshot and his jaw clenched. "You think you've won, don't you?" He growls, his voice low and menacing. "You think you can just destroy my life and walk away unscathed?" I laugh, the sound bright and carefree. "Oh, Damien, I don't think I've won. I know I have, and as for walking away unscathed, I'm not the one who's been blacklisted from every gallery in the city, am I? His face twists with rage, and for a moment I think he might actually hit me. But then a voice cuts through the tension, smooth and confident. Raven, darling, there you are. I've been looking all over for you. I turn to see Marcus, my new business partner and the owner of the most prestigious gallery in town. He's tall and handsome, with salt and pepper hair and a smile that could charm the pants off a nun. Marcus, so sorry to keep you waiting, I say, taking his arm and shooting Damien a triumphant look. I was just catching up with an old friend. Damien's eyes narrow, his fists clenching at his sides. Friend? Is that what you call the man who ruined your life? Marcus raises an eyebrow, his gaze flicking between us. Ruined her life? From where I'm standing, it looks like Raven's doing just fine. Better than fine, actually. Her show is a sensation, and the critics are calling her the next big thing in the art world. I smile, leaning into Marcus's side. What can I say? I had a lot of inspiration to draw from. Pain, betrayal, the depths of human cruelty. It's all there on the canvas for everyone to see. Damien scoffs, his face twitched with disgust. You're pathetic, Raven. Using our marriage, our private life, as fodder for your little art projects. Don't you have any shame? I step forward, my eyes blazing with fury. Shame? You want to talk about shame, Damien? How about the shame of being married to a man who cheated on me, lied to me, and tried to steal my inheritance? The shame of watching my stepdaughter spiral into addiction and despair because of your toxic influence? No, Damien, I have no shame. Not anymore. But you? You should be drowning in it. He opens his mouth to retort, but I cut him off with a wave of my hand. Save it. I'm done listening to your lies and excuses. I have a show to run and a life to live, and you have a one-way ticket to rock bottom. Enjoy the ride. I turn on my heel and walk away, Marcus at my side. I can feel Damien's eyes boring into my back, but I don't look back. I'm done looking back, done letting my past define me. I'm Raven Blackwood, artist, survivor, and queen of my own fucking destiny. And nothing, and no one, is going to stand in my way. As we mingle with the other guests, I catch sight of Lilith, her face gaunt and her eyes hollow. She's talking to a man in a cheap suit, and I can tell by the way she's fidgeting that she's jonesing for a fix. Part of me wants to go to her, to offer her help and support. But I know that's not what she needs. Not really. What she needs is to hit rock bottom, to face the consequences of her choices, and learn to stand on her own 2 feet. Just like I did. The applause is deafening as I take my final bow, the stage lights hot on my skin and the adrenaline pumping through my veins. I've done it. I've poured my heart and soul onto the canvas, and the world has embraced me with open arms. I step off the stage and into a sea of congratulations and well wishes, my cheeks aching from the constant smiling. But then I see a familiar figure pushing through the crowd, his face haggard and his eyes wild. Raven, please, I need to talk to you, Damien pleads, his voice hoarse and desperate. I've lost everything, my job, my home, my reputation. I have nothing left. I stare at him, my heart hardening to his pathetic display. And whose fault is that, Damien? You brought this on yourself with your lies and your cheating and your greed. He shakes his head, tears streaming down his face. I know. I was wrong, so wrong. But please, Raven, I'm begging you. Forgive me. Give me another chance. I'll do anything. Be anything you want me to be. I laugh, the sound harsh and bitter. Anything I want you to be. I wanted you to be a faithful husband, a loving partner, a decent human being. But you couldn't even manage that, could you? He falls to his knees, his hands clasped in front of him like a penitent sinner. I'm sorry, Raven. I'm so sorry. I was weak, selfish, stupid, but I've changed, I swear. I'll prove it to you every day for the rest of our lives. Just give me one more chance, please. I look down at him, this man who once held my heart in his hands and crushed it without a second thought. And I feel nothing. No love, no hate, no pity. Just a cold, empty void where my feelings for him used to be. Get up, Damien, I say, my voice flat and emotionless. You're making a scene. He staggers to his feet, his face a mask of desperation and hope. And does that mean? I shake my head, a small, cruel smile playing at the corners of my mouth. It means I'm done with you, Damien. Done with your lies, your manipulation, your endless cycle of betrayal and false remorse. I gave you chances, more than you ever deserved, and you threw them all away like the selfish, spineless worm you are. His face crumples, his shoulders sagging in defeat. "Raven, please." I hold up a hand, cutting him off mid-sentence. "No more, Damien. No more pleading. No more promises. No more second chances. You're dead to me, do you understand? Dead and buried, just like the love I once had for you." I turn to walk away, but he grabs my arm, his fingers digging into my skin. "You can't do this, Raven. You need me, just like I need you. We're meant to be together. Can't you see that?" I yank my arm out of his grasp, my eyes flashing with fury. The only thing I see is a pathetic, delusional man who can't accept that his time is up. "You had your chance, Damien. Multiple chances, and you blew them all. Now it's time to face the consequences of your actions." I walk away, my head held high and my heart light. I can hear him calling after me, his voice growing more and more desperate with each step I take. But I don't look back, don't falter in my stride. I'm done being a victim, done being a pawn in someone else's game. I'm the master of my own fate now, the captain of my own ship. And I'm sailing towards a future that's bright and bold and full of endless possibilities. As I step out into the cool night air, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. I've faced my demons, confronted my past, and emerged stronger and wiser for it. I'm ready for whatever comes next, whatever challenges and triumphs lie ahead. Because I know that no matter what, I'll face them head on, with courage and grace and an unshakable belief in myself. I am Raven Blackwood, and I am unstoppable. The sun streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new penthouse, casting a warm glow over the sleek, modern furniture and the vibrant paintings that adorn the walls. I stand on the balcony, a cup of coffee in my hand, and gaze out at the city skyline, a sense of peace and contentment washing over me. It's been 6 months since I walked away from Damien and Lilith, 6 months since I took back control of my life and my destiny, and in that time, I've accomplished more than I ever thought possible. My art has taken the world by storm, with collectors and critics alike hailing me as a visionary, a force to be reckoned with. I've sold pieces to museums and galleries around the globe, and my bank account has never looked healthier. But it's not just about the money or the fame. It's about the sense of purpose, the feeling of fulfillment that comes from knowing I'm making a difference in the world. I've started a foundation, using my wealth and influence to support young artists from disadvantaged backgrounds. I mentor them, guide them, help them navigate the treacherous waters of the art world. And every time I see one of them succeed, every time I watch them take the stage and bask in the applause, I feel a rush of pride and joy that's unlike anything I've ever experienced. But even as I revel in my newfound success, I can't help but feel a twinge of emptiness. A sense that something is missing. And I know exactly what, or rather who, it is. Lilith. I haven't spoken to her since that fateful night at the gallery, haven't seen her since she stumbled out of the building, high and desperate and lost. But I've kept tabs on her, watched from afar as she spiraled deeper and deeper into addiction and despair. Part of me wants to reach out, to offer her the same support and guidance I give to my young protégés. But another part of me, the part that still bears the scars of her cruelty and betrayal, hesitates. And then, one day, I receive a letter. It's from Lilith, written from a rehab facility in Arizona. She tells me she's sorry, that she's been working on herself, trying to make amends for all the pain she's caused. She asks for my forgiveness, my help in rebuilding her life. And as I read her words, I feel a stirring in my heart, a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, there's still a chance for redemption. I write back, cautiously at first, then with growing warmth and affection. We exchange letters, then phone calls, then visits. And slowly but surely I watch as Lilith transforms before my eyes, shedding the layers of anger and bitterness and emerging as a new woman, strong and resilient and full of promise. Together we work to build a new life for her, one based on honesty and trust and mutual respect. I help her find a job, a place to live, a network of supportive friends and mentors. And as I watch her flourish, I feel a sense of pride and accomplishment that rivals even my greatest artistic triumphs. But even as Lilith and I mend our broken relationship, I know that there's one loose end left to tie up. One final piece of the puzzle that needs to fall into place. Damien. I've avoided him for months, refusing his calls and emails and desperate pleas for forgiveness. But I know that I can't run forever, can't hide from the truth of what he did and who he is, and so I agree to meet with him, one last time. We sit across from each other in a quiet coffee shop, two strangers who once shared a life and a love. He looks older, thinner, his eyes haunted by the weight of his mistakes. And as he speaks, as he pours out his heart and his soul, I feel a flicker of something that might be pity, might be understanding, but I also feel a sense of closure, a sense that this chapter of my life is finally coming to an end. And as I walk away from him, as I step out into the bright, bustling streets of the city, I know that I'm ready for whatever comes next. Because I am Raven Blackwood, artist, survivor, and master of my own destiny, and nothing and no one can ever take that away from me. I never thought I'd find myself in this position, married with a beautiful daughter and another child on the way. Growing up in a small town, I had always dreamed of a better life, one where I could make a difference and provide for my family in ways my parents never could. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. My husband Ethan and I had been happily married for 5 years. He was a successful software engineer, and I was a dedicated nurse. Our daughter, Lily, was the light of our lives. She had just turned 4 and was the spitting image of her father, with his warm brown eyes and infectious smile. Everything seemed perfect until the day we received the devastating news that Ethan's father had passed away suddenly. He had been a kind and supportive figure in my life, always treating me like a daughter. His loss left a gaping hole in our family, as we struggled to come to terms with our grief. Ethan's mother, Mona, suggested moving in with us to help with the household and my second pregnancy. At first I was hesitant. Mona and I had never seen eye to eye, but Ethan convinced me that having her around would be beneficial, especially with his frequent work trips. Little did I know that her presence would turn my life upside down. From the moment she moved in, Mona made it clear that she was in charge. She criticized my every move, from the way I cooked to how I raised Lily. "You're too soft on her," she would say, her voice dripping with condescension. "She needs discipline, or she'll end up just like you." I tried my best to brush off her comments, focusing on my work and taking care of Lily. But as my pregnancy progressed, I found myself increasingly exhausted and overwhelmed. Ethan was rarely home, and when he was too preoccupied with work to notice the tension between his mother and me. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift at the hospital, I found Mona rearranging the nursery I had spent weeks preparing. "This won't do," she declared, holding up the soft yellow blanket I had lovingly chosen. "The baby needs something more practical, not these frivolous things." I felt my anger rising, but I swallowed my words, not wanting to cause a scene. Instead, I retreated to my room, fighting back tears of frustration and helplessness. As the weeks wore on, Mona's behavior became increasingly intolerable. She would disappear for hours, leaving me to handle all the housework and childcare, only to return with a list of complaints about how I was failing as a wife and mother. I knew I needed to talk to Ethan, to make him understand how much his mother's presence was affecting me. But every time I tried, he would dismiss my concerns, saying that I was overreacting and that his mother meant well. I felt trapped, suffocated by the weight of Mona's constant criticism and Ethan's inability to see the truth. I longed for an escape, for someone to understand what I was going through. Little did I know that my breaking point was just around the corner, and it would come in the form of a life-threatening illness that would test the limits of my strength and the bonds of my family. As Mona settled into our home, I quickly realized that her offer to help was nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to control every aspect of our lives. She took over the kitchen, insisting on cooking meals that catered to her tastes, disregarding the fact that I was struggling with morning sickness and food aversions. "Jade, you need to eat more," she would chide, pushing a plate of greasy bacon and eggs towards me. "You're eating for 2 now, and my grandchild needs proper nourishment." I would force myself to take a few bites, fighting the urge to gag, knowing that any protest would only lead to a lecture about my inadequacies as a mother. Mona's presence also put a strain on my relationship with Ethan. She would monopolize his time, insisting on long conversations about his work and his plans for the future, leaving little room for me to connect with my husband. One evening, as I was putting Lily to bed, I overheard Mona talking to Ethan in the living room. "You know, Ethan, you really should consider taking that promotion in New York. It's a fantastic opportunity, and you can't let Jade hold you back." I felt my heart sink as I listened to Ethan's response. "I know, Mom, but it's not that simple. Jade's job is here, and with the baby coming, I don't think it's the right time." "Nonsense," Mona scoffed. "Jade can find work anywhere, and I'll be here to help with the children. You need to think about your career, Ethan. Don't let her selfish desires ruin your chances of success." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could Mona be so dismissive of my needs and desires? And why wasn't Ethan standing up for me? As the days turned into weeks, I found myself growing more and more resentful of Mona's presence in our home. She would criticize the way I dressed, the way I spoke, even the way I breathed. Nothing I did was ever good enough for her. "Really, Jade, you should take better care of yourself," she would say, eyeing my swollen ankles and exhausted face. "No wonder Ethan is always working late. Who would want to come home to this?" Her words cut deep, but I refused to let her see how much she was getting to me. I threw myself into my work, taking on extra shifts at the hospital, desperate for a reprieve from the constant criticism and belittlement. But even at work, I couldn't escape Mona's influence. She would call me constantly, demanding updates on my whereabouts and when I would be home. If I didn't answer right away, she would leave scathing voicemails, accusing me of neglecting my family. I knew I needed help, but I didn't know where to turn. My friends were all busy with their own lives, and I didn't want to burden them with my problems. I felt utterly alone, trapped in a nightmare of my own making. One afternoon, as I was leaving the hospital after a particularly grueling shift, I ran into my neighbor, Zoe. She took one look at my tear-stained face and pulled me into a tight hug. "Oh, honey, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. I broke down, pouring out all the frustrations and pain I had been holding in for so long. Zoe listened patiently, offering words of comfort and support. "You can't let her treat you like this, Jade," she said firmly. "You need to stand up for yourself, for your family. Ethan needs to know what's going on, and you need to set some boundaries with Mona." I knew Zoe was right, but the thought of confronting Mona filled me with dread. She had already proven herself to be a master manipulator, and I feared that any attempt to stand up to her would only make things worse. Little did I know that my fears were about to become a reality, and that the price of my silence would be higher than I ever could have imagined. Zoe's words echoed in my mind as I drove home from the hospital, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I knew I needed to talk to Ethan, to make him understand the hell I had been living in since Mona moved in, but the thought of facing his mother's wrath made my stomach churn. As I pulled into the driveway, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that was sure to come. I walked into the house, expecting to find Mona waiting for me with her usual barrage of insults and criticisms, but instead, I was greeted by an eerie silence. I made my way to the living room, where I found Ethan sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He looked up as I entered, his eyes red and puffy from crying. "Ethan, what's wrong?" I asked, my voice filled with concern. "It's Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "She's gone." For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Mona had finally realized the error of her ways and decided to leave on her own. But as I looked closer at Ethan's face, I realized that something was terribly wrong. "What do you mean she's gone?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "She left a note," Ethan said, handing me a piece of paper. "She said she can't stand to be around us anymore, that we're ungrateful and selfish, and that she's going to stay with her friends until we come to our senses." I read the note, my eyes widening with each word. Mona had painted herself as the victim, claiming that I had driven her away with my constant demands and lack of appreciation for all she had done for us. "This is ridiculous," I said, crumpling the note in my fist. "She's the one who's been making our lives miserable, not the other way around." Ethan looked at me, his eyes filled with confusion and hurt. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Jade. Mom has always been there for me, and now she's saying all these terrible things about you. I just don't know what to do." I felt my anger rising, but I forced myself to stay calm. Ethan, you have to trust me. Your mother has been manipulating you, manipulating all of us. She's not the victim here. We are. But even as I spoke the words, I could see the doubt in Ethan's eyes. Mona had always been his rock, his constant support, and the thought of her being anything less than perfect was almost too much for him to bear. Over the next few days, I tried my best to carry on as normal, but the weight of Mona's absence hung heavy in the air. Ethan was distant, spending long hours at work and barely speaking to me when he was home. Lily, too, seemed to sense that something was wrong, clinging to me more than usual and asking constantly when Grandma would be coming back. I knew I needed to do something, to find a way to make Ethan see the truth about his mother, but I was at a loss. Every time I tried to bring up the subject, he would shut down, retreating into himself and leaving me feeling more alone than ever. It was during one of these moments of despair that I finally broke down, collapsing onto the bed in a fit of tears. I felt like I was drowning, suffocating under the weight of Mona's manipulation and Ethan's inability to see the truth. As I lay there, my body racked with sobs, I heard a soft knock on the door. I looked up to see Zoe standing there, her face filled with concern. "Oh, Jade," she said, rushing to my side and pulling me into a hug. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea things had gotten this bad." I clung to her, pouring out all the pain and frustration I had been holding in for so long. Zoe listened patiently, offering words of comfort and support. "You can't let her win, Jade," she said firmly. "You have to keep fighting, for yourself and for your family. Ethan will come around eventually, but you have to be strong until then." I knew Zoe was right, but I also knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. Mona had already proven herself to be a formidable opponent, and I feared that the price of standing up to her would be higher than I ever could have imagined. As the weeks passed, I threw myself into my work, taking on extra shifts at the hospital in a desperate attempt to escape the suffocating atmosphere at home. Ethan was rarely around, his business trips becoming more frequent and longer in duration. I knew he was using work as an excuse to avoid dealing with the tension between his mother and me, but I couldn't bring myself to confront him about it. One evening, as I was preparing dinner for Lily and myself, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I tried to ignore it, attributing it to the stress and exhaustion of the past few months, but as the night wore on, the pain only intensified. By the time I put Lily to bed, I was struggling to breathe, my vision blurring at the edges. I knew I needed help, but Ethan was out of town, and I couldn't bear the thought of calling Mona. In a moment of desperation, I reached for my phone and dialed Zoe's number. "Jade, what's wrong?" she answered, her voice thick with sleep. "Zoe, I need help," I gasped, my words coming out in short, painful bursts. "I think there's something wrong with the baby." Zoe was at my door in minutes, her face pale with worry. She took one look at me and immediately called for an ambulance. As we waited for the paramedics to arrive, I felt a sense of dread wash over me. I knew that my condition was serious, and I feared for the life of my unborn child. When the ambulance finally arrived, I was barely conscious, my body racked with pain and fever. The paramedics worked quickly, loading me onto a stretcher and rushing me to the hospital. As I lay in the emergency room, hooked up to a myriad of machines and monitors, I overheard the doctors discussing my condition. "Pneumonia," they said, their voices grave. "And she's 7 months pregnant. We need to act fast." I felt a surge of panic wash over me. Pneumonia was serious enough on its own, but coupled with my pregnancy, it could be deadly. As the doctors worked to stabilize my condition, I drifted in and out of consciousness, my mind filled with thoughts of Lily and my unborn child. I knew I needed to fight, to be strong for them, but I could feel my body weakening with each passing minute. It was during one of these moments of lucidity that I remembered Mona. Despite everything she had put me through, I knew that she needed to be informed of my condition. I asked Zoe to contact her, hoping that she would put aside her animosity and be there for her son and grandchildren. But as the hours passed and Mona failed to appear, I began to realize the depths of her cruelty. Even in my darkest hour, she couldn't be bothered to show an ounce of compassion or concern. Ethan, on the other hand, rushed to my side as soon as he received word of my condition. He sat by my bedside, holding my hand and whispering words of encouragement, his eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Jade," he said, his voice breaking. "I should have been here for you, for our family. I promise things will be different from now on." I wanted to believe him, to take comfort in his words, but I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. Mona's influence had taken root, and it would take more than a few apologies to undo the damage she had caused. As I lay there, fighting for my life and the life of my unborn child, I couldn't help but wonder how things had gotten so bad. How had I allowed myself to become so isolated, so alone in my struggles? And how could I ever hope to rebuild my family in the face of such overwhelming adversity? But even in my darkest moments, I knew that I had to keep fighting. For Lily, for my unborn child, and for the life I knew we deserved. No matter what it took, I would find a way to break free from Mona's grip and reclaim the happiness that had been stolen from us. As I fought for my life in the hospital, Zoe remained by my side, a constant source of support and comfort. She sat with me for hours, holding my hand and wiping the sweat from my brow, her eyes filled with concern and compassion. "You're going to get through this, Jade," she said, her voice firm with conviction. "You're one of the strongest people I know, and you have so much to live for." I wanted to believe her, to take strength from her words, but the pain and exhaustion were overwhelming. I could feel my body weakening with each passing hour, and I feared that I might not have the strength to keep fighting. It was during one of these moments of despair that Ethan finally returned to the hospital, his face drawn and haggard. He had been away on business when I first fell ill, and it had taken him nearly 2 days to make it back to the city. "Jade, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice breaking as he took my hand in his. "I should have been here sooner. I never should have left you alone with my mother." I could see the guilt and regret in his eyes, and I knew that he was finally beginning to understand the toll that Mona's behavior had taken on our family. "It's not your fault, Ethan," I said, my voice weak and raspy. "You couldn't have known how bad things would get." But even as I spoke the words, I knew that they weren't entirely true. Ethan had seen the way his mother treated me, had heard the cruel words she spoke and the manipulative games she played. He had chosen to ignore it, to bury his head in the sand and hope that things would get better on their own. And now, as I lay in the hospital bed, fighting for my life and the life of our unborn child, the consequences of that choice had become all too clear. Over the next few days, my condition began to improve, thanks in no small part to the tireless efforts of the hospital staff. They worked around the clock to monitor my vital signs and adjust my medications, doing everything in their power to ensure that both the baby and I remained stable. Ethan rarely left my side during this time. His attention focused solely on my well-being and the well-being of our child. He slept in a chair by my bed, holding my hand and whispering words of love and encouragement, his eyes filled with a newfound determination. "I promise, Jade, things will be different from now on," he said, his voice firm with resolve. "I won't let my mother hurt you or our family ever again." I wanted to believe him, to take comfort in his words, but a part of me couldn't help but wonder if it was too little, too late. Mona's influence had taken root, and it would take more than a few promises to undo the damage she had caused. As the days turned into weeks, I slowly began to regain my strength, my body healing from the ravages of the pneumonia. The baby, too, seemed to be thriving, growing stronger with each passing day. But even as my physical health improved, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over me. Mona's absence weighed heavily on my mind, and I couldn't help but wonder what she was planning, what new scheme she might be hatching to tear our family apart. It was during one of these moments of anxiety that Zoe came to visit, her face filled with a mixture of concern and determination. "Jade, there's something you need to know," she said, her voice low and urgent. "I overheard Mona talking to one of her friends on the phone. She's planning to leave for a luxury cruise tomorrow, and she doesn't intend to come back until after the baby is born." I felt a surge of anger wash over me, hot and fierce. How could Mona be so selfish, so cruel? How could she abandon her own grandchild in their hour of need? But even as the anger burned within me, I knew that I couldn't let it consume me. I had to stay focused on my own recovery, on the health and well-being of my unborn child. And so, with a heavy heart and a newfound sense of determination, I began to plan for the future, a future without Mona and her toxic influence. I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but I also knew that I had the strength and the support to see it through. No matter what challenges lay ahead, I would fight for my family, for the life we deserved. And I would do it with the love and support of those who truly cared for me, those who would stand by my side through thick and thin. Mona lounged on the deck of the luxury cruise ship, sipping a cocktail and basking in the warm sun. She had been looking forward to this trip for months, a chance to escape the drama and responsibilities of family life and indulge in some much-needed relaxation. As she lay there, her mind drifted to thoughts of Jade and the baby. She knew that her daughter-in-law was still in the hospital, fighting for her life, but she couldn't bring herself to feel any real concern. In her mind, Jade had brought this on herself, with her constant demands and selfish behavior. Suddenly, Mona's phone buzzed with an incoming message. She glanced at the screen, expecting to see a text from one of her friends, but instead, she saw a voicemail from Lily. Curious, she pressed play and held the phone to her ear. At first, she couldn't make out what her granddaughter was saying, her voice muffled and distant. But as she listened more closely, she felt a chill run down her spine. "Grandma, please come home," Lily pleaded, her voice thick with tears. "Mommy is really sick, and the doctors say she might not make it. We need you here, Grandma. Please come back." Mona felt a surge of panic wash over her. She had never heard Lily sound so frightened, so desperate, and the thought of Jade actually dying, of leaving her grandchildren without a mother, was almost too much to bear. Without a second thought, Mona grabbed her bags and rushed off the ship, her mind racing with possibilities. She knew that she needed to get to the hospital as quickly as possible to be there for her son and grandchildren in their hour of need. As she raced through the airport, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Mona couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over her. She had always known that her behavior towards Jade was wrong, that her constant criticism and manipulation were taking a toll on their family. But she had never imagined that it would come to this, that her own selfishness could put the life of her unborn grandchild at risk. When she finally arrived at the hospital, Mona was met with a sight that made her blood run cold. Ethan was standing outside Jade's room, his face twisted with rage and disgust. "How dare you show your face here?" he spat, his voice shaking with anger. "After everything you've done, after all the pain you've caused, you have the nerve to come crawling back now?" Mona opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She could see the hurt and betrayal in her son's eyes, and she knew that there was nothing she could say to make it right. "Jade is fighting for her life in there," Ethan continued, his voice rising with each word. "She's been through hell, and it's all because of you. Your constant criticism, your manipulative games, your selfish behavior. You've torn this family apart, and now you have the audacity to show up here and play the concerned grandmother?" Mona felt tears streaming down her face, hot and shameful. She knew that Ethan was right, that she had no one to blame but herself for the state of their family. "Ethan, please," she begged, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I've made mistakes, and I'm so sorry for all the pain I've caused. But please let me see Jade. Let me be there for her, for all of you." Ethan stared at her for a long moment, his eyes hard and unforgiving. Finally, he stepped aside, allowing her to enter the room. As Mona approached Jade's bedside, she felt a wave of guilt and shame wash over her. Her daughter-in-law lay there, pale and still, her body hooked up to a myriad of machines and monitors. "Jade, I'm so sorry," Mona whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I never meant for things to get this bad. I never meant to hurt you or our family." But even as she spoke the words, Mona knew that they were too little, too late. The damage had been done, and it would take more than a few apologies to make things right. As she sat there holding Jade's hand and praying for a miracle, Mona knew that she had a long road ahead of her, a road of redemption, of making amends for all the pain and suffering she had caused. And she knew that it would be a difficult journey, one that would test her in ways she had never been tested before. But for the sake of her family, for the sake of the precious life growing inside Jade, she knew that she had to try. As I lay in the hospital bed, fighting through the haze of pain and medication. I could hear the sound of raised voices coming from the hallway. At first, I couldn't make out what they were saying, but as the voices grew louder and more agitated, I realized that it was Ethan and Mona. "How could you be so selfish, so cruel?" Ethan shouted, his voice shaking with anger. "Jade is lying in there, fighting for her life, and you couldn't even be bothered to show up until now?" "Ethan, please," Mona pleaded, her voice trembling. "I didn't know how serious it was. I thought—" "You thought what?" Ethan interrupted, his voice dripping with disgust. "That you could just abandon your family, go off on some luxury cruise, and everything would be fine? That Jade would just magically get better, and you could come back and play the doting grandmother?" I could hear the shame and regret in Mona's voice as she tried to explain herself, but Ethan wasn't having it. He had seen the toll that her behavior had taken on our family, the pain and suffering that she had caused, and he wasn't about to let her off the hook. "You know, I used to look up to you," Ethan said, his voice growing quieter but no less intense. "I used to think that you were the strongest, most capable person I knew, but now I see you for what you really are. A selfish, manipulative woman who cares more about her own pleasure than the well-being of her own family." Mona started to protest, but Ethan cut her off. "No, I don't want to hear it. You've had your chance, and you blew it. You've caused nothing but pain and heartache for Jade, for our children, and for me, and I won't stand for it anymore." I could hear the sound of footsteps, and then the door to my room opened. Ethan walked in, his face drawn and haggard, but his eyes filled with a fierce determination. "Jade, I'm so sorry," he said, taking my hand in his. "I'm sorry for not standing up to my mother sooner, for not protecting you the way I should have, but I promise things will be different from now on." I nodded, too weak to speak, but I could feel the love and support radiating from him. He had finally seen the truth about his mother, had finally understood the depths of her cruelty and manipulation, and he was ready to make a change. Over the next few days, as I slowly regained my strength, Ethan rarely left my side. He sat with me for hours, holding my hand and talking about our future, about the life we would build together without Mona's toxic influence. And when the time came for me to give birth, he was right there beside me, coaching me through every contraction and cheering me on as I brought our beautiful baby boy into the world. As I held my son in my arms, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope and renewal wash over me. We had been through so much, had faced such incredible adversity, but we had come out the other side stronger and more united than ever before. And as I looked into Ethan's eyes, I knew that we would face whatever challenges lay ahead together, as a family. We had each other, and we had the love and support of those who truly cared for us, and that was all we needed to build the life we deserved. In the days and weeks that followed, I learned that Mona's friends, horrified by her behavior, had cut all ties with her. She was left alone and isolated, forced to confront the consequences of her actions and the pain she had caused. But for us, life went on. We moved forward, focusing on our family and the love we shared. And though the scars of the past would always be with us, we knew that we had the strength and resilience to overcome anything that came our way. As I watched Ethan play with our children, his face filled with joy and laughter, I knew that we had finally found the happiness and peace that we had always deserved. And I knew that, no matter what the future held, we would face it together, united in our love and our commitment to each other. As the weeks turned into months, I slowly began to heal, both physically and emotionally. The birth of our son had brought a newfound sense of joy and purpose to our lives, and Ethan and I were determined to cherish every moment we had together as a family. But even as we celebrated this new chapter in our lives, the specter of Mona's betrayal still loomed large. I couldn't shake the feeling of anger and resentment that had taken root in my heart, the sense that she had gotten away with her cruelty and manipulation for far too long. It was during one of my follow-up appointments with the doctor that I finally learned the true extent of Mona's isolation. As I sat in the waiting room, flipping through a magazine, I overheard two of the nurses talking about her. "Did you hear about that awful woman who abandoned her daughter-in-law when she was in the hospital?" one of them said, her voice dripping with disgust. Yeah, I heard she went on some fancy cruise instead of being there for her family. The other replied, What kind of monster does that? I felt a surge of vindication wash over me. It seemed that Mona's actions had finally caught up with her, that the people in her life were starting to see her for who she really was. Later that day, as I was putting away some of the baby's clothes, I found a letter tucked away in the back of the drawer. It was from Mona, written in her familiar spidery handwriting. Jade, the letter began, I know that I have caused you and our family a great deal of pain, and for that I am truly sorry. I have spent the last few months reflecting on my actions, and I have come to realize the depths of my selfishness and cruelty. I felt my heart start to race as I read on, my eyes scanning the page for any hint of sincerity or remorse. I know that I can never make up for the harm I have caused, but I want you to know that I am committed to being a better person, a better mother, and a better grandmother. I hope that someday you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I stared at the letter for a long moment, my mind racing with conflicting emotions. A part of me wanted to believe her, to think that she had truly changed and was ready to make amends. But another part of me, the part that had endured years of her manipulation and abuse, knew better. I had seen firsthand the depths of her cruelty, the way she had torn our family apart with her selfish behavior. And so, with a heavy heart, I tore the letter into pieces, watching as the fragments fluttered to the ground like confetti. I knew that I could never forgive Mona, could never let her back into our lives after all the pain she had caused. But I also knew that I couldn't let her betrayal define me, couldn't let it poison the love and happiness that Ethan and I had worked so hard to build. And so, I made a choice to focus on the future, on the life we had created together. A choice to surround myself with people who truly cared for me, who would stand by my side through thick and thin. In the years that followed, Ethan and I watched our children grow and thrive, our love for each other deepening with each passing day. We faced our challenges head-on, united in our commitment to each other and our family. And though the scars of the past would always be with us, we knew that we had the strength and resilience to overcome anything that came our way. As I watched Lily and our son play together in the backyard, their laughter ringing out like music, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We had weathered the storm, had emerged from the darkness stronger and more united than ever before. And I knew that, no matter what the future held, we would face it together, bound by the unbreakable bonds of love and family. Mona's betrayal had taught me the true price of selfishness and cruelty, but it had also shown me the incredible power of forgiveness and hope. And that, I knew, was a lesson I would carry with me for the rest of my life.